Chapter 987. This was the first time she had seen the big ice block so unnatural. Chu Qingyan was even more unwilling to let it go. Her fingers tightly gripped his wrist as she slowly moved closer. She quietly said with a laugh, "Hurry up, otherwise we'll be discovered." The corner of Xiao Su's eyes twitched. "If you don't want it, then no one will discover it." Not far away, Hu Ling was feeding the horses. When he saw this scene, he thought, the little princess consort is teasing master again. How could he let others see such a good show? So he used other orders as an excuse to chase the soldiers who were in the way away. Only he comfortably held the straw in his mouth as he hid on the side and peeped. However, he seemed to feel several unkind gazes looking at his back. He swallowed and slowly turned around. Several people were coldly looking at him. Bai Yutang, snowflake cake, glutinous rice ball, and a huge Shanghai. Little ancestors, you're looking at me. I'm scared. Hu Ling's voice was trembling. Being caught doing something bad, this feeling was too uncomfortable. Bai Yutang and the others did not leave when they heard this. Instead, they slowly moved closer to him. Hu Ling saw that the situation was bad and didn't care about the little princess consort teasing master anymore. He pulled his horse and ran away. Seeing the people in the way leave, Bai Yutang and the others immediately jumped to where Hu Ling had been hiding. They smiled as they looked at the two people in front of them. They finally found the best spot to watch. Completely unaware that her actions were seen by her pets, Chu Qingyan was still unwilling to let it go. It was like, if you don't give me a reward, I'll stay here with you. Xiao Su had a big headache from her. He knew he couldn't do it now, but he couldn't bear to reject her. Moreover, during this time, he couldn't get close to her. His heart also longed for the intimacy between the two of them. His wrist was gently shaken, and their skin touched. It was soft and warm. The person in front of him was petite and cute, and her eyes were soft. Xiao Su's heart skipped a beat, and he leaned down and kissed her lightly on her face. Because the two of them were wearing helmets and the brims of their hats were hidden, no one knew what the two of them were doing. Her face was cool and itchy. Chu Qingyan finally got what she wanted. Xiao Su immediately pulled away. He thought that if he gave it to her, she would stop. But at this time, she suddenly reached out to hold his head. She stood on her tiptoes and heavily bit his lips. Then she quickly let go and took 2 steps back. Xiao Su's eyes widened. Before he could catch her, she had already slipped away. She licked the corner of her mouth and smiled at him. "It tastes good. This young master is leaving." After saying this, Chu Qingyan turned Chu Qingchu, Chu Qingchu, Qingchu, Chu Qingchu Qingchu, Qingchu. She mounted her horse and her expression changed. In an instant, she regained her cold and aloof appearance. She urged her horse and rushed in the direction where the army had left. Qingchu Qingchu Qingchu, Qingchu, Qingchu Qingchu Qingchu, Qingchu, Qingchu Qingchu, Qingchu Qingchu, go, master is indeed domineering. After Bai Yutang and the others finished admiring this scene, they also followed their master in satisfaction. Xiao Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry seeing her run away. His finger touched the place where he was bitten and his eyes deepened. "Little fellow, when I come back, I will definitely take care of you." Chu Qingyan felt a chill run down her spine. She comforted herself that it was probably because the wind was too strong. Hu Ling only dared to come back after Chu Qingyan left with the army. He walked behind his master who was watching his wife leave and asked, "Master, should we also set out?" Xiao Su looked away and returned to his usual cold appearance. "We'll set out in 15 minutes. "Yes." Hu Ling lowered his head, not daring to look at his master's current appearance. He had run away just now, but he was hiding far away. He still saw the little princess consort teasing his master. Although he didn't see it clearly, it was still a rare sight to see his master compromise. It really was a feast for the eyes. If he told this to Turan and Mu Ling, they would definitely be jealous to death. "Hu Ling, why are you shaking your shoulders?" Huo Ling immediately froze. Cough, cough, he was too pleased with himself. This subordinate had a bad pillow last night. My neck is a bit uncomfortable. He replied with a laugh. Is that so? Do you need this king to help you? The voice faintly carried a threat. Huo Ling immediately jumped 3 steps away and waved his hand. No need, no need. This subordinate is already fine. After saying this, Huo Ling ran away like a wisp of smoke. This was called reaping what one sowed. There was no living. Pang Huang led the army to another path. Although it was a mountain road and wasn't easy to walk on, at least it was hidden and they didn't have to worry about the enemy chasing after them. However, the soldier who was sent to scout ahead hurriedly came back on his horse. Your Highness, there's an ambush ahead. Pang Huang immediately reined in his horse and shouted with a gloomy expression, tell me in detail. The soldier didn't have time to catch his breath and immediately said, we were scouting ahead and found that halfway up the mountain, there was a large group of people gathering and heading in our direction. How many people did the other side bring? Rei Luo immediately asked from the side. This subordinate didn't see clearly, but there were at least 10,000 soldiers. The soldier thought carefully and replied. Rei Luo was surprised. He turned his head to look at the crown prince who had a very ugly expression and asked, Your Highness, we have 30,000 people, which is more than the other side. Should we choose to face the enemy head-on? Pang Huang immediately rejected this suggestion and said in a deep voice, if we face the enemy head-on, even if we win, we'll be exhausted. This will make it easy for the pursuers behind us. Look, what other paths do we have to avoid now? There was an ambush in front of them and pursuers behind them. It was very unfavorable for them. They couldn't meet force with force and had to conserve their strength. Rei Luo felt that the crown prince's words made sense and immediately opened the map he carried with him. He roughly scanned the map and pointed it to the crown prince, Your Highness, there's a river north of the mountain. The current is turbulent, but we don't have a boat. Our brothers aren't good at swimming, so we can only choose the east and south. Xishuan's pursuers are in the south. Let's go south. Pang Huang reached out and pointed at the map, making a prompt decision. Rei Luo nodded. After putting away the map, he gave the order to change direction. Pang Huang watched from afar as the army was forced to change their path again. He felt very sullen. He had never been so passive before. He tightly gripped the reins in his hand, and the anger in his chest was difficult to express. When Xiao Su received the news that Pang Huang was leading the army to the south, it was already an hour later. Master, Pang Huang really didn't choose to face the enemy head-on. As if he could imagine Pang Huang fleeing, Huo Ling laughed very happily. The little guy was in the south. Xiao Su frowned and then said to Huo Ling, send someone to tell Turan to keep a certain distance from the southern Sung army. Don't let them discover our whereabouts. Huo Ling accepted the order, yes. Pang Huang looked to the south. If everything went well, they could surround Pang Huang. Chapter 988. Pang Huang led the army all the way to the south. It seemed that they couldn't feel the pursuers behind them. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Your Highness, in another 2 hours, we can leave the mountain. Rei Luo pointed ahead and smiled. Pang Huang looked in the direction of his finger. Sure enough, the field of vision was much wider. It was no longer craggy rocks and lush woods. His brows relaxed a lot. Let the army walk out of the forest in one go. Pang Huang's tone was much lighter. It could be felt that his mood had improved. Rei Luo exhaled heavily. In the past few days, they had wandered around this closed mountain and couldn't receive any news from the outside. His Highness the Crown Prince was in an extremely bad mood. His entire body was filled with a violent aura. As a close official, he was affected all day long. Now, there was finally a good sign. Perhaps influenced by the upper echelons, the army didn't rush as heavily as before. Their footsteps were much lighter. They thought that they could leave the mountain in a moment. This was a village where there was light at the end of the tunnel. However, when everyone rushed to the mountain pass excitedly, what awaited them was not a village at the end of the tunnel, but a black mass of soldiers. The person in the lead was dressed in red and had a bright smile. Under the sun, it was very dazzling. Compared to their miserable appearance, the other party was bright and beautiful. It was like the difference between a noble and a downtrodden commoner. Pang Huang looked at the leading red-clothed person in surprise. Chu Yan. Didn't she die in Qingchao City? Pang Huang, long time no see. Chu Qingyan sat on the back of a horse and looked at the people below. She waved her hand and returned his words to him. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Pang Huang looked at her. His gaze was slightly cold, but there was a joy in his tone that he didn't notice. Maybe the king of hell didn't want to accept me, so he let me out again. Chu Qingyan raised her voice and said with a smile. There was no feeling of arrogance when two armies faced an enemy. Pang Huang showed a touch of ridicule. You didn't die, so Xiao Su didn't die either. So this time, the person controlling from behind is him. Chu Qingyan nodded and said, you are very smart, but evil will never prevail over good. That's why the heavens will not allow you to be so carefree. Pang Huang, do you choose to surrender or resist? When he said the last sentence, his gentle voice seemed to carry with it a piercing cold wind, causing the hearts of the people from the southern blue continent to tremble. They couldn't help but look at the crown prince. If they still couldn't figure out Nan Sang's plan at this point in time, then all these years of fighting would have been in vain. Now that the other party knew their movements like the back of their hand, there was no longer any meaning in continuing to deal with them. Moreover, it would only shrink the scope of the other party's encirclement, so why not take the opportunity to kill their way out? Chu Yan, we've fought for so long and we haven't had a good fight yet. Now, let this crown prince witness your ability. As soon as Pang Huang's words fell, the southern Sung army took out their weapons and charged towards them ferociously. Chu Qingyan chuckled. With a wave of her hand, the first arrow formation was launched. Because they had the advantage of higher ground, the first wave of arrows killed many of the other party's troops. However, with the enemy's fearless approach, the arrow formation was no longer of much use. Chu Qingyan called back the arrow formation and released the cavalry and infantry. The numbers were equal, but the Sichuan army had the advantage of higher ground and were full of energy. The southern Sung army was at a disadvantage. At this stage, they had been constantly rushing, so they were mentally exhausted. Facing this sudden battle, they didn't have the strength. Soon, the southern Sung army couldn't hold on any longer. Seeing this, Pang Huang immediately ordered his men to retreat. Chu Qingyan saw that they were retreating and also retreated. The other three sides' troops would arrive soon. She didn't want to waste her troops here with the southern Sung army. Once the encirclement was complete, it would be difficult for them to escape. The southern Sung army retreated into the valley and found a place to hide. However, this time's setback caused the entire army to fall into a very low state. Pang Huang wanted to boost the morale, but he didn't have the strength. Running around day and night made Pang Huang's body unable to bear it. That night, his injuries worsened. All the military doctors gathered around Pang Huang. They applied medicine, took his pulse, and fed him medicine. They were busy in full swing. Everyone was suppressing the panic in their hearts. His Highness the Crown Prince was their backbone. If something happened to him, how could they resist Shi Xian's army of tigers and wolves? Rei Luo and the other soldiers were pacing back and forth, waiting with difficulty. At this time, His Highness the Crown Prince is awake. Everyone gathered around. Pang Huang felt as if he was in the depths of a dark sea. It was very suffocating. It was as if he couldn't see the road ahead until a bit of light appeared in front of him. He slowly opened his eyes. After adjusting to the brightness, his eyes finally found focus. He could hear the cheers of his subordinates. He frowned and then said, "Let's go, Brother Jean." He frowned and frowned. "How long has this prince been asleep?" "You've been asleep for 3 hours." The military doctor replied. "He actually slept for so long." Pang Huang struggled to sit up, but unfortunately, he couldn't exert any strength. At this time, the military doctor hurriedly helped him up. What's the situation now? Pang Huang was still thinking about the current situation. Ray Luo revealed a worried expression. Chu Yan brought people to block the south. The ambush we encountered before also seems to be searching for our whereabouts in the mountains. Fortunately, this valley is relatively hidden, giving us a temporary place to stay. Although his mind was still a bit muddled, Pang Huang was much more clear-headed than before. Ray Luo and the others only saw the surface. Only he knew what Xiao Su and the others were planning. Xiao Su had sent troops to intercept in all directions. He hadn't made a move yet because he was waiting for the encirclement. As long as they were surrounded by the Sichuan army, they could only fight like trapped beasts. They wouldn't be able to escape. What awaited them was only a merciless disaster. No. He couldn't let Xiao Su succeed. He had to take advantage of the encirclement and leave with the army before it was complete. Otherwise, the entire Southern Blue Army would be buried in Sichuan. As soon as Pang Huang moved, the blood in his chest churned. Soon, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Your Highness the Crown Prince. Your Highness. The people in the tent were astonished. The military doctor on the side immediately stepped forward. He wiped his wounds, checked his pulse, and took his medicine. After Pang Huang calmed down, he turned to look at the older military doctor. Do you have medicine that can quickly restore a person's mental strength? The military doctor hesitated. Under the Crown Prince's slightly cold gaze, he could only report truthfully. We do, but it can only last for a few days. Furthermore, it's extremely harmful to the body. Okay, take it out. Pang Huang immediately ordered. But Your Highness, this is too risky. The military doctor shook his head and advised. No buts. This prince's words are orders. Pang Huang raised his eyebrows and stared at the military doctor. At this time, if he didn't recover, only death awaited the army. Chapter 989. The military doctor had no choice but to bring the medicine over. Pang Huang ignored his subordinates' objections and swallowed the medicine without hesitation. This was a tiger's medicine, and it quickly took effect. Pang Huang's previous haggard and weak expression was replaced by a sharp gaze. Ray Luo, send someone to investigate and find out the enemy's current movements. After dark, we'll prepare to set off. Although he couldn't bear to see His Highness take the medicine, he had no other choice. Ray Luo gritted his teeth and agreed. Thousands of miles away in the Sichuan capital, reports of victory were sent to the palace. His Royal Highness has recovered Jiangning County and Qingqiao City. Jiasong County has been recovered. The Southern Song Army has suffered heavy losses. Now, the Prince of Nansong has been trapped in the forest by His Royal Highness. Because of these reports, the haze from before was swept away and everyone was beaming with joy. As expected of the God of War, King of England. As soon as he set out, the Southern Song barbarians have a taste of our Sichuan's power. His Royal Highness's martial arts are unparalleled and his strategy is outstanding. He's truly worthy of being called our savior. Xiao Su was praised from top to bottom by the imperial court. Although the city was recovered and the Southern Song army suffered heavy losses, the Sichuan emperor was happy. When he heard the ministers praising Xiao Su without holding back, he felt a little upset. After the morning court, the Sichuan emperor returned to the imperial study. He flipped through the memorial in his hand, but not a single word entered his eyes. He simply folded the memorial and prepared to take a walk in the imperial garden. At this time, a voice came from outside. Consort Yu requests an audience. Because Xiao Su was fighting at the front lines, the Sichuan emperor often went to the palace of Chaoyang, so he didn't go to the Moon Palace as often. Now that he heard that Consort Yu had come, he remembered how he had neglected her during this period of time and invited her in. Consort Yu walked in with a tray in her hands. On the tray was a small porcelain cup with a white and blue pattern. She was dressed in a rose-colored gauze with a white shawl draped over her shoulders. Her hair was tied into a bun like the clouds, making her look graceful and graceful. She had a light plum blossom makeup on her face. Although it was simple and elegant, it couldn't hide her deep facial features. She was charming and enchanting, and the corner of her mouth faintly carried a seductive smile. She was like a seductive fox. Every frown and smile of hers was enough to steal one's soul. As soon as Consort Yu appeared, she attracted Sichuan Emperor's attention. Although imperial concubine Moon already had a 10-year-old son, her elegance hadn't diminished from the past. Or, it could be said that she was a bit less immature than a young girl and had a bit more mature charm. This sort of beauty was in line with a man's sense of beauty. This was the difference between her and Empress Liang. Consort Yu knew the advantages of her appearance. She played to her strengths and avoided her weaknesses, showing off her beauty to the fullest. However, Empress Liang was different. In order to show off the majesty and status of the throne, she always dressed herself in a dignified manner. This gave off a lifeless feeling. Therefore, after spending a few days in the palace of Chaoyang and Empress Liang, the Sichuan emperor was a little bored. Now that he saw the fresh, refined, and charming Consort Yu, it was as if he was tired of eating delicacies and was suddenly given a bowl of iced plum soup. It added a bit of freshness to his summer days. Your Majesty, this is lotus seed lily soup that this concubine personally brewed. The weather has become much hotter, so you must take care to avoid the heat. Otherwise, the heat will only get worse by the day. Consort Yu's understanding was perfect. The Sichuan emperor enjoyed it very much. He took the soup she personally served and drank a mouthful. He praised, "Your cooking is getting better and better." Consort Yu smiled bashfully, "If your Majesty likes it, you will make more of your Majesty's favorite food in the future." Hearing this, the Sichuan emperor put down the bowl and reached out to hold her hand. He sighed, We married you into the palace to dote on you. You're not here to do these things. As long as you keep us company, that's enough." Consort Yu heard this and was very pleased. Empress Liang would probably never hear His Majesty say such things in her entire life. Consort Yu smiled, "You is willing to do anything for your Majesty as long as your Majesty doesn't dislike you, How could we dislike you? We also love our son." The Sichuan emperor patted the back of her hand and smiled. "We will remember your Majesty's kindness to this concubine and Ranner." Consort Yu leaned on the Sichuan emperor's shoulder. She rolled her eyes and then smiled respectfully, "I heard that the King of England defeated the Southern Sung army. This concubine congratulates your Majesty on recovering the lost land and showing the might of the Sichuan Empire. In the future, this concubine will have Ranner follow this imperial brother's example and learn from him." When Xiao Su was mentioned, the Sichuan emperor's expression became much calmer. He said indifferently, "Ranner doesn't need to learn how to fight and kill. He can focus on learning how to govern the country. When he reaches a certain level, there will be civil and military officials who will work for him. In governing a country, the most important thing is to choose capable people. If he does everything himself, wouldn't that be neglecting the essentials?" The Sichuan emperor's words were undoubtedly a message to Consort Yu. She didn't need to care about Xiao Su. She could focus on teaching Xiao Ran. When Consort Yu received this confirmation, she felt much more at ease. Previously, when she heard the reports from the front lines, she thought that Xiao Ran's position in His Majesty's heart would be shaken because of Xiao Su's outstanding performance. But now, it seemed that there was no change. His Majesty still didn't like Xiao Su. Thus, she could be at ease. After Consort Yu withdrew, the Sichuan emperor sat alone in the imperial study. His face was gloomy as he thought about many things. Not long after, a letter from the Southern Sung Empire was delivered to the imperial study. Night fell. Pang Huang ordered the soldiers to abandon their horses and drive them in the opposite direction. This was to create a smokescreen so that people would mistakenly think that they were going in the opposite direction. This way, they could delay a bit of time. At this time, thunder rumbled and the sky seemed to have been split open. The white light was frightening. After a dozen or so thunders, a torrential rain poured down. Although the environment was harsh, it made it more convenient for the Southern Sung army to hide. After they figured out the direction of Chu Qingyan's army, they avoided the path of direct confrontation with them. In the rainy night, they carefully advanced. No one lit a torch and they smoothly walked for a few hours. When they reached a large flat area and were about to rest, suddenly, torches were lit in front of them one after another. It was like a ghost fire suddenly appeared in the forest. Everyone was startled. But soon, uniform footsteps broke through the air, accompanied by the sound of thunder. The firelight illuminated the faces of the people behind them, as well as their battle robes. This unforeseen event caused the Southern Sung army to reveal their weapons. Pang Huang was stunned at first. Then, he squinted his eyes and looked at the person who came out from the darkness. The firelight spread from the boots to the silver mask. The light shone into the pair of cold and clear eyes, as if there was a hint of mockery. Pang Huang gnashed his teeth and called out his name word by word. "It's you, Xiao Su." In just a few days, the situation had turned upside down. He was the one who set the trap, but now he was the chess piece on the board. Chapter 990. Pang Huang's angry shout didn't make Xiao Su move his eyebrows. He looked at Pang Huang indifferently, like a god looking down on all living things. He didn't hit Pang Huang when he was down, nor was he arrogant. His expression was calm as he said, "Prince of Nansong, your men have all been subdued by us. If you are willing to surrender, we will not harm you." Although his voice wasn't loud, it was enough to penetrate the crowd. Xiao Su's words caused a great panic in the Southern Sung army. Their men had all been subdued. Didn't that mean that they were the only ones left out of the hundreds of thousands of Sichuan soldiers? Their fighting spirit was instantly obliterated. Pang Huang's face instantly darkened. This Xiao Su made his men lose their fighting spirit as soon as he appeared. Once his men believed these words, they would be defeated without a fight. He immediately shouted, "Everyone, don't listen to their lies. They are all lies. Brothers, let's not talk nonsense with them. Let's kill our way out. Let's join our army." Pang Huang's impassioned words restored everyone's mood. They held their weapons and followed Pang Huang as he charged towards the Sichuan army. "Kill!" Xiao Su made a gesture, and the army behind him also charged towards the Southern Sung army. Thus, the two sides clashed together. The sounds of fighting and shouting rose and fell one after another. The quiet mountain forest suddenly became noisy as swords clashed. The rain became heavier. Pang Huang looked at Xiao Su through the curtain of rain, and the corner of his mouth twitched. "King of England, last time, we didn't fight to our heart's content. This time, let's continue to see who is better." As soon as he finished speaking, he was like a dragon emerging from the water. He leapt up and flashed his big sword at Xiao Su. Xiao Su drew his long sword to face the enemy. After the first move, Xiao Su slightly frowned. He remembered that he had seriously injured Pang Huang last time. Why was his internal energy still so abundant? Pang Huang's attacks were close to crazy. Perhaps it was because he was forced into a desperate situation, but his every move was very fierce. Xiao Su immediately calmed down and faced the attack. After a few rounds, there was still no clear victor. The two of them separated and stood in the rain, panting. The rain was extremely heavy, soaking the battle clothes, making them even heavier. Pang Huang wiped the rainwater off his face and looked coldly at Xiao Su, who didn't seem to be in a sorry state even though he was standing in the rain. "Xiao Su, you're so smart. Why did you hide in Lian City all these years?" Although he hadn't seen him face to face much, from the exchange of blows, he was indeed a talent in managing an army. Moreover, from his sharp ability to control the situation and devise strategies, he was able to judge the situation and size up the situation. He was neither arrogant nor rash, possessing the ability and bearing that a ruler should have. However, compared to his own style, he could not understand why Xiao Su had chosen to silently contribute to Sichuan behind the scenes. In his opinion, Power and wealth should be firmly controlled in his own hands. Xiao Su looked at him indifferently and didn't answer. Pang Huang didn't bicker and continued, as the eldest son of the first wife, you are talented and resourceful. You should rightfully inherit the position of crown prince. Why is it that after 20 years, the position of crown prince of Sichuan still hasn't been decided? I heard that in the previous dynasties, the princes were all determined when they were young. Why is it different in your dynasty? This is really strange. Xiao Su didn't like his curiosity, but he smiled faintly at this moment. Your Highness, each country is different. My father is in good health, so it's normal that he doesn't need to appoint a crown prince in advance. Human nature. Pang Huang snorted disdainfully at these words. This crown prince thinks that your emperor doesn't want to appoint you as crown prince. However, he still needs you now, so he hasn't chosen the heir in his heart. Am I right? Before this, he had done some research on the Sichuan dynasty. Although the information didn't mention it clearly, it was no secret that Sichuan emperor doted on the fourth prince. However, he was very curious as to how Xiao Su was able to endure such humiliation and risk his life for the West Xian emperor without complaint. No one had mentioned this matter in front of Xiao Su before. Pang Huang's words had exposed a cruel truth. If it was anyone else, they would have flown into a rage out of humiliation. But this person was Xiao Su. He didn't care about these things at all. He just felt that Pang Huang's confident tone was a bit annoying. Seeing Xiao Su look at him with a frown, Pang Huang thought that he had seen through his thoughts. His eyes turned and he lowered his voice as he spoke. Xiao Su, that position belongs to you. If you want it, this crown prince can help you. Xiao Su raised his brows. How does your highness plan on helping this king? If you and I work together, what is there to be afraid of? Isn't the southern Sichuan dynasty already in our bag? Pang Huang said with a chuckle. He was very confident. So you also told the person who leaked the information to you this way? Xiao Su's eyes were cold. Pang Huang heard this and his voice was filled with a sigh. Speaking of this person, this crown prince is very ashamed. I still don't know who he is or what his goal is, but... His eyes lit up as he looked at Xiao Su. This crown prince guesses that this person will be a strong opponent for you in the future. He is much stronger than your fourth brother. Xiao Su knitted his brows. He was trying to determine if Pang Huang's words were true or false. Pang Huang noticed his gaze and couldn't help raising his brows. Since this crown prince wants to cooperate with you, there is no deception. There is nothing to hide. Xiao Su lowered his brows when he heard this. He secretly thought that if this person could hide Pang Huang's intentions, then this person would be a great hidden danger for the Sichuan dynasty. Pang Huang saw that Xiao Su didn't say anything and his heart sank. How about this cooperation? Xiao Su calmly looked at Pang Huang. Your Highness, you are not me. How do you know what I want? Pang Huang was stunned when he heard this. Could it be that this person didn't want that position at all? Impossible. How could there be someone who didn't want to hold power and enjoy the glory of being worshipped by tens of thousands of people? When he wanted to confirm it again, Xiao Su's sword had already pierced through the water. Pang Huang quickly pulled out his saber to block. When the saber and sword collided, he narrowed his eyes and asked, Are you willing to live like this for the rest of your life? What a waste of talent. This king will say the same thing. I am not you. I don't have such strong ambitions. After saying this, Xiao Su swung his sword at him. After exchanging a few more moves, Pang Huang unwillingly said, Even if you don't want to fight, do you think those people will let you go? Will the emperor allow you to do as you please? These words caused Xiao Su to abruptly narrow his eyes. Through the rain, Pang Huang could see the change in his expression. He thought that he had seen through his thoughts and wanted to continue speaking. However, Xiao Su did not give him a chance to speak. His sword attacks became stronger and stronger. Pang Huang could no longer be distracted and could only close his mouth. In the rain, a black and silver figure moved as fast as lightning. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see their moves. Chapter 991. Pang Huang and Xiao Su exchanged blows, and it was hard to tell who was better. However, the southern Song army was exhausted from the continuous journey, and was retreating bit by bit. Pang Huang was shocked. If this continued, his men would soon be exterminated by the Sichuan army. He made a prompt decision. After separating from Xiao Su, he didn't continue to attack Xiao Su. Instead, he used the force to fly away and snatch the Sichuan army's warhorse. Then, he rode his horse and shouted to everyone, "Retreat!" Once the southern Song army heard the order, they immediately retreated. Because they had already traveled this path before, they were more familiar with it than the Sichuan army. They quickly escaped far away. Xiao Su chased after them with his men, but was left some distance behind. A rope bridge spanned across two large mountains. Pang Huang waited for everyone to cross the bridge before giving the order to cut the rope. When he saw that Xiao Su and the others had arrived and could only watch from across the mountain, Pang Huang revealed a pleased smile. When they were fighting, he had already thought of this path, but he couldn't find the right time. Xiao Su calmly watched Pang Huang disappear with his men from the other side of the mountain. It was as if he was watching a trapped beast walk into their cage. The rain had slowly stopped. He looked up at the gradually brightening sky. It was almost time to reel in the net. The southern Song army had lost nearly a third of their men. Pang Huang was depressed, but he had nowhere to vent. "Your Highness, the scouts just reported that the 7 directions have been surrounded. Apart from the southeast direction, should we take advantage of this opportunity to march northeast?" Ray Luo rushed over to report as soon as he received the news. Hearing this, Pang Huang immediately stood up from the rock and ordered everyone, "Let's go." On the other side, Xiao Su was waiting for news from the other directions when he received a secret letter from the capital. As soon as Xiao Su opened the letter and skimmed through its contents, his face sank. Huo Ling was wiping his weapon. He planned to greet the southern Song people as soon as the sun rose. However, after seeing his master's expression, he couldn't help but stop what he was doing and walk over. "Master, did something happen in the capital?" "No, father ordered the army to retreat." Xiao Su's voice was as cold as ice. "Why?" "We're about to beat the southern Song army back to their home. His Majesty's order is very strange." Huo Ling was filled with anger and confusion. Xiao Su replied, "A few days ago, the non-Song king submitted a peace treaty to the capital. He's willing to stop waging war against us for the next 10 years. "What? You're sending us away? How could those people from the southern Blue Continent possibly abide by this agreement? Didn't you say the 2 countries were to be friends? Didn't they broke the agreement?" Bye. Huo Ling became even more angry. If he could even understand this kind of reasoning, how could someone as smart as His Majesty not understand? Xiao Su wasn't in a good mood either. He gripped the letter in his hand tightly with a cold expression. "Hua, what should we do next? Are we still going to fight this battle?" Huo Ling couldn't understand his master's thoughts and couldn't help asking. "Pass down the order. Tell everyone not to act rashly and wait for further orders." When Xiao Su gave this order, his eyes were as deep as the sea. This time, they finally managed to capture Pang Huang, but because of this order, they released the tiger back to the mountain. This was too infuriating. However, His Majesty's order was an imperial edict. No matter how brave they were, they couldn't disobey. "Yes," Huo Ling sullenly replied. Then he said, "Master, are we going to release the tiger back to the mountain?" Xiao Su was silent for a moment, then he said, "Huo Ling, brush, ink, paper, and inkstone." Huo Ling immediately went to prepare and quickly brought them up. Xiao Su dipped the brush in ink and wrote on the paper. After a while, he put away the brush and waited for the paper to dry. He folded it and handed it to Huo Ling. "Have someone send this to Father Emperor as quickly as possible." "Yes." Huo Ling left. When the footsteps went away, Xiao Su looked up at the rising sun with his hands behind his back. The rain on his body was slowly evaporating, but his heart sank little by little. Others might not be able to understand Father Emperor's actions, but he could see the meaning behind it. He couldn't help but think of what Pang Huang said during the battle last night. There was one thing he was right about. Even if you don't want to fight, do you think those people will let you go? Will the Emperor allow you to do as you please? He pursed his lips into a line and his eyes were dark and gloomy. Pang Huang led people to escape through the night and headed southeast. Your Highness, Xiao Su, and the others didn't chase after us. Rei Luo looked back and only saw the lush green trees. At this time, the sky was already bright. Pang Huang still did not dare to let his guard down. Without turning his head, he said, "We have to race against time. According to the area of this forest, they will surround us from all sides in about 2 hours. By then, we won't even have a chance to gamble." Rei Luo immediately shut up and hurried on. 2 hours later. Chu Qingyan and Turan met up. "How's the situation on your side?" Chu Qingyan asked with a smile. Turan revealed a carefree smile. "When we met, they didn't dare to meet force with force. They quickly turned around and ran away. We haven't fought yet." Hearing the slight regret in the earth spirit's voice, Chu Qingyan winked at him and said encouragingly, "What are you afraid of? Our scouts just reported that Pang Huang has already brought his men and is heading towards us. They intend to break out of the encirclement here. Then, we will be able to have a good fight with them. However, we have to make sure our soldiers are on guard and not let them take advantage of us." Turan raised his eyebrows confidently and cupped his hands. "Okay. This subordinate will go and tell the brothers to keep their eyes open." Chu Qingyan nodded and planned to go out and patrol. At this time, a soldier hurried over. "Young Master Chu, the Southern Sung army is 1 li away. They will be here soon." Chu Qingyan and Turan looked at each other. Their eyes lit up as if they had seen prey. "Okay, Turan, you and I will rush over immediately." Chu Qingyan hadn't finished speaking when a brave rider hurried over and handed over a letter. "Master's urgent order." Chu Qingyan didn't understand. Why was there an order at this time? They had clearly agreed on it before. She didn't think much and immediately opened it to read with Turan. "Hold your horses." There were only these 4 words on the letter. Both of them were shocked and astonished. Chu Qingyan flipped through the entire letter and didn't say anything else. How could His Highness give such an order? The enemy is already in front of us. However, the handwriting on the letter couldn't be faked. It was indeed the big ice cube's handwriting. Could it be that Master has other plans? The Earth Spirit was puzzled. Chu Qingyan shook her head. "I don't know. Young Master, what should we do now?" Turan didn't have any ideas. Pang Huang's army would be here in a quarter of an hour. Could it be that they were just going to watch him escape? This was a trap that everyone had worked hard to set up. Chapter 992. When everyone looked at Chu Qingyan, she was also very conflicted. She knew that everyone wanted to avenge their humiliation and capture Pang Huang. Capture the leader first, then the Southern Sung army could only surrender. However, this was the Big Ice Cube's order. Although the general was outside, the monarch's orders were not always accepted. However, she believed that the Big Ice Cube had his own ideas. He must have his reasons for giving the order. Thus, under everyone's nervous gaze, Chu Qingyan held the white paper tightly and said resolutely, "We will not move and listen to the commander's orders. This is not the time to care about personal grudges. Everyone, put away your weapons and wait on the side. If you see the Southern Sung army, wait for orders. Do not be impulsive." Although everyone was a little disappointed, they still obeyed the order. At this time, young Master Chu was right. They had to listen to the commander's orders. They believed in any decision of His Highness. Soon, Pang Huang's people arrived at the foot of the mountain where Chu Qingyan led the army. They looked around vigilantly, but there were no obstacles or ambushes. Rei Luo was very puzzled. "Your Highness, according to the scouts, there is an army led by Chu Qingyan here. Why is there no one here?" "Your Highness, be careful of traps. Another soldier reminded him. Pang Huang nodded. Be alert, be careful, and move forward quickly. Yes. Seeing Pang Huang and his men escape from right under their noses, Chu Qingyan could feel the anger of the soldiers behind her as they gritted their teeth. She could understand this anger. Along the way from Jiangnan, she saw many people who lost their homes and loved ones because of the war. They were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. Most of these soldiers came from the common people. Those who lost their homes and loved ones were their parents, brothers, and sisters. So, how could they not feel hatred when they saw their enemies in front of them? Chu Qingyan didn't know how to comfort these soldiers. She would only know the reason after meeting up with the big ice cube. At this time, Pang Huang had successfully left the mountain forest with his people. At this time, they were still a little confused. How could it be so smooth? Weren't the pursuers hot on their heels? How could they disappear in the blink of an eye? Pang Huang was also at a loss. At this time, Rui Luo received a letter and immediately passed it to him. As soon as he saw the cover, he knew that it was written by his father. Without hesitation, he opened it to read. There was a long paragraph written on it. The gist of it was, I heard that you are seriously injured, and your army has been defeated one after another. You have also fallen into a trap. I only have you left. If anything happens to you, the country will have no successor. Therefore, I have written a letter of peace to the Sichuan emperor, promising that I will not invade for 10 years. They will not make things difficult for you. Therefore, you must come back quickly. The corners of Pang Huang's eyes twitched. He never thought that his imperial father would do such a thing. He had never surrendered to anyone in all these years, but at this critical juncture, his imperial father had already done it. What else could he do? Rui Luo also saw the words above and let out a long sigh of relief. The battle had finally ended. Although it looked a bit dejected, at least they weren't completely wiped out. Your Highness, His Majesty is right. Where there is life, there is hope. Right now, your health is the most important thing. Rui Luo knew that his crown prince couldn't stand the taste of defeat, but the facts in front of him couldn't be changed. Pang Huang frowned. Just as he was about to say something, his chest stagnated and he was in so much pain that he couldn't breathe. Rui Luo saw blood flowing from the corner of his crown prince's mouth and cried out in alarm to call for a military doctor. Pang Huang's ears were full of clamor, but he couldn't hear anything. His imperial father wasn't wrong. He was already an arrow at the end of its flight. If he continued to be so stubborn, he was afraid that the Southern Sung army would fall in the Sichuan. He couldn't take this risk. Rui Luo. Pang Huang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at his subordinate's worried expression. He slowly said, issue an order for all surviving troops to withdraw from the Sichuan. Rui Luo's eyes lit up and he immediately bowed. When the Southern Sung soldiers heard that they could return, they couldn't hide their excitement. Pang Huang looked at the Sichuan territory in front of him. He was unwilling, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, he suddenly felt something and turned his head. His line of sight fell on the red on top of the mountain. The two of them looked at each other. Pang Huang read the coldness in her eyes. He knew that she didn't have a good impression of him, but he still curved his lips into a smile. Although he suffered a double loss on this trip, it didn't seem like he didn't gain anything. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. This crown prince is looking forward to meeting you again. Seeing Pang Huang's army slowly disappear from sight, Chu Qingyan withdrew her troops and returned to the army with Turan. Along the way, she was full of questions, but she didn't show it on her face. She and Turan hurriedly returned to the camp. When they opened the curtain, they found that all the soldiers had returned. She and Turan were both stunned. Shouldn't these people be chasing after the other Southern Sung armies? Why were they here? At this moment, the dozens of soldiers were also confused when they saw the two of them. Thus, everyone was puzzled and waited for their commander to explain. After a while, Xiao Su brought Huo Ling into the tent. Greetings, General. Everyone saluted. No need to be so polite. I called you all back this time because I have something important to announce. Xiao Su sat down and went straight to the point. Everyone was anxious to ask questions, but when they heard this, they immediately pricked up their ears and seriously listened. Xiao Su looked at everyone and said in the same tone, the Southern Sung King submitted a peace treaty a few days ago. He said that he's willing to withdraw his troops and not invade our country for 10 years. In other words, we won this war. When these words fell, everyone looked at each other in dismay. They didn't show much joy. Fang Lu stood up and said with a conflicted expression, Your Highness, can't we beat the Southern Sung army until they cry for their parents and return to their nest? To suddenly stop and accept their challenge, this general feels a bit uncomfortable. With Fang Lu speaking up, everyone else also stood up. Your Highness, this general is also somewhat unconvinced. Why did the Southern Sung people invade us, destroy our homes, and hurt our loved ones? Why did they refuse to fight after we attacked them? This is unfair. If we don't beat them up, this general won't be able to calm down. That's right. We can only take a beating and can't fight back. It's sullen. Your Highness, who cares about their peace treaty? Let's fight. We'll give them a taste of their own medicine. We'll flatten the Southern Sung army. Let's see if they dare to invade other people's homes again. Complaints came one after another. Chu Qingyan, who was originally full of dissatisfaction, couldn't help but frown when she saw this situation. Chapter 993. These soldiers were all hot-blooded men. They were different from the civil officials in the imperial court. If they were displeased, they would throw a punch. They wouldn't be like the civil officials who would slowly reason with them. If they liked something, they would like it. If they were angry, they would be angry. They would never hide their emotions. Just like this moment, everyone was very dissatisfied with this peace treaty. If it wasn't for Xiao Su, they would have already led their army to attack the Southern Blue Dragon. At first, Chu Qingyan couldn't understand why they didn't directly capture Pang Huang. Now that she heard the reason, she understood. However, she didn't have the same indignant emotions as these soldiers. Now that she saw the crowd's anger, she was a little worried about how the big ice cube would end this. After all, this was a decision made by the higher-ups. The people below could only obey. Even if it was the big ice cube, in the face of the emperor's orders, wouldn't it have to obey? The big ice cube sat quietly, waiting for everyone to vent their anger. Only then did he speak in a neither hurried nor slow manner. This prince is clear about your emotions. However, you must first understand 3 things. First, when 2 armies fight, regardless of victory or defeat, there will be casualties. Second, we've already fought for nearly a year. The manpower and material losses are enormous. We must consider the problem of replenishing our reserves. Third, in this war, we've won the Southern Blue Dragon. To a certain extent, we've avenged our people. These calm words calmly and unhurriedly listed the 3 matters in detail. Like a cool summer breeze, it blew away the impatience on everyone's body and calmed them down to listen to what he wanted to convey. Your Highness' words are reasonable. Everyone agreed. Although they were still a little unwilling, they couldn't refute His Highness' words. Not only did they have to consider their personal feelings, they also had to consider the country's righteousness. Xiao Su's expression remained unchanged as he continued, this prince understands that it's hard to swallow the humiliation of being invaded for no reason, coming and going as you please. Therefore, this prince has already conveyed your intentions to His Majesty. If His Majesty chooses to reject this treaty of peace, then this prince will definitely bring you all back to the southern blue continent. These calm words gave off a powerful sense of defeat, and the last bit of unwillingness in the hearts of the soldiers was soothed. If they were to accept the peace negotiations just like that, it would be a waste of so many days of hard work. After Xiao Su calmed down everyone's emotions, his words instantly satisfied everyone. Chu Qingyan looked at the person sitting at the top of the table. Her heart was filled with emotions. To be able to see through people's hearts and know how to appease the people below, was this the typical style of a leader? The threat of the Southern Blue invasion had been resolved. After the meeting was dismissed, everyone left with their arms around each other's shoulders. Everyone was relaxed and unbridled, no longer as tense as before. Chu Qingyan was affected by their mood. She couldn't help but smile. She felt the pressure on her body suddenly disappear. Her whole body was sore, but her heart was very light. However, when she turned around and saw that the person behind the table was still frowning slightly, she couldn't help but retract her smile and walk towards him. Big Ice Cube, shouldn't we be happy that we defeated Southern Blue? Why do you still have that bitter look on your face? At this time, there were no outsiders in the tent. Chu Qingyan placed her hands on the table and leaned over, blinking her eyes as she stared at him curiously. Xiao Su looked at her when he heard this. She couldn't understand the emotions in his eyes. The person in front of him was looking at him mischievously and cheerfully, sweeping away the seriousness from a few days ago. He knew that she had been too tense during this period of time. Now that she could finally relax, he didn't want to bring up those troublesome matters to make her worry. It's fine. You can go back and rest. He smiled faintly at her. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan gave a soft snort and complained in dissatisfaction, "This is a classic example of ordering me around when you need me, but pushing me away when you don't need me." Big Ice Cube, good job. Ian. Xiao Su looked at her helplessly. Chu Qingyan raised both her hands in surrender. Okay, I won't say any more. After saying this, she put down her hands and moved to his side. She continued to snort, "Big Ice Cube, I know you're unhappy, but there's no use in keeping it in your heart. After all, this was a decision made by the higher-ups. Small shrimps like us can only be ordered around and sent away at will." Xiao Su looked at her calmly and continued to ramble on. "If it were me, I wouldn't be happy either." The Southern Blue Empire had brazenly barged in. Not only did they destroy and loot, they even invaded our territory. Now that they've been defeated by us, they want to escape. Is this something that can be settled with a peace treaty? If saying sorry was useful, then why do we need the police? No, wait, do we still need constables? Chu Qingyan almost slammed the table and stomped her feet when she said something that was filled with righteous indignation. Xiao Su was originally unhappy, but because of her jesting, his temper disappeared. "You're the only one who's reasonable." Xiao Su reached out and pinched her nose. The smile on his face became brighter. Chu Qingyan pushed his hand away and rolled her eyes. "You say it as if you're usually unreasonable." Xiao Su smiled. "Big Ice Cube, let's not frown, okay?" She raised her hand and placed it on top of his mask. She gently took it off, revealing the peerlessly handsome face behind it. Then, she reached out and gently stroked his eyebrows, trying to smooth them out. "There are many worries in life, but we should always smile, because the more we smile, the younger we are 10 years. The last bit of gloominess in his heart dissipated because of her soft coaxing tone. Her fingertips were cool and delicate. When they touched his face, his heart immediately calmed down. Xiao Su's gaze was fixed on her. A little flame was ignited in his eyes. Chu Qingyan was about to retract her hand when he reached out and held it. She looked at him, not knowing what was going on. However, when she met his pair of bright eyes, she had a bad premonition and immediately looked away. I suddenly remembered that I have something to do. I'll take my leave first." After she finished speaking, she wanted to run away. Unfortunately, before she could take a step, she was already carried up by her waist. In a blink of an eye, she was already sitting on his lap. Looking at the handsome face that was getting closer and closer, she couldn't even speak coherently. "Ian, do you still remember that you owe me a reward?" Chu Qingyan's face was full of confusion. "Do you still remember the one that you bit me before we set off?" Her face was still full of confusion. It was time to collect the debt. Xiao Su bent down and kissed her lips. She was stunned for a moment. Then, she couldn't help but wrap her arms around his shoulders. When the golden wind and the jade dew met, it was better than countless things in the human world. At this moment, he didn't need to figure out his imperial father's thoughts after giving him the order. He didn't need to think about how to proceed in the future. He only wanted to hug the person in his arms until the end of time. If there were too many things to consider and weigh in one's life, then there would be no meaning in living. Chapter 994. The memorials from the front lines quickly reached the hands of the Sichuan emperor. At this time, the morning court had already ended. The Sichuan emperor summoned several important ministers into the imperial study. He handed the memorials in his hands to the right and left prime ministers, and said with a serious expression, "This is a memorial sent by the King of England. Take a look." The right prime minister took it and glanced at it. A strange expression flashed across his face, and then he passed it to the other ministers. He was silent for a few moments. During this time, he secretly sized up the Sichuan emperor's expression, trying to find some clues from his expression. After the ministers finished reading, they couldn't help but look at each other, and then at the right and left prime ministers, wanting to see what they had to say. The Sichuan emperor sat on the dragon throne, and then swept his cold gaze across the crowd. "I didn't call you here to keep quiet. If you have any suggestions, speak." The right prime minister didn't dare to delay, and immediately said, "Your Majesty, His Royal Highness asked for a decree to attack the southern Sung Kingdom. This is a good starting point, but this old minister believes that after a year of war, the people have no way to make a living. If we start another war, I'm afraid that the treasury will be empty, and the people will complain." After the right prime minister said this, the ministers in his faction all agreed. At this time, the left prime minister also stood up, and refuted, "Although the right prime minister's words are correct, everyone has to consider the current situation. Our army has the main advantage, and the southern Sung Kingdom's army has been defeated like a landslide. If we can strike while the iron is hot, we can attack the southern Sung Kingdom's nest and show the world that we, the Sichuan Kingdom, are not easy to bully." After the left prime minister finished speaking, the ministers in his faction also stood up to support him. At this time, the right prime minister glanced at the Sichuan emperor, and saw that his expression became gloomy because of the left prime minister's words. The right prime minister had an idea, so he let go of his hands and feet, and turned to the left prime minister. "The left prime minister's words are wrong. Now that the southern Sung Kingdom has already submitted the peace treaty, if we reject it, how will the world see us? We are a nation of etiquette, don't be like the southern Sung Kingdom, shouting war all day." These words were somewhat insinuating that the left prime minister was originally a military general. The ministers present all gave the left prime minister an ambiguous look. Even the West Xian emperor gave the left prime minister a dissatisfied look because of these words. The left prime minister was a little. "Sichuan emperor, this old minister felt that we should accept the southern Sung Kingdom's peace treaty. That way, we have one less enemy and one less friend. That way, isn't it the best of both worlds? Of the emperor. Of friends, of emperor, his." The left prime minister still wanted to say something, but the West Xian emperor had already made his decision. Right prime minister's words are reasonable. All right, let's do it this way. Now, we can write a decree for the three armies to return to the capital to receive their rewards. The Sichuan emperor's words were firm, and the left prime minister's faction couldn't say anything else. They all bowed their heads and praised, "Your Majesty is wise." The left prime minister turned and saw the left prime minister smiling like a fox. He couldn't help but feel depressed, and left the imperial study with several ministers. After they left the palace, the ministers who followed Prime Minister Zhou all looked surprised. Minister A said, "Left Prime Minister, this humble subject thinks that His Majesty doesn't really want to pursue the enemy. Why did he ask us to discuss this matter?" Another minister said, "You still don't understand? His Majesty just wants to borrow the left Prime Minister's mouth to make this decision." Minister A continued, "That's reasonable, but this humble subject still doesn't understand. Why didn't His Majesty let His Royal Highness pursue the enemy? to solve the problem of the southern Sung kingdom? If they recuperate in the future, it's very likely that they'll come back with an army. The left Prime Minister snorted. The King of England has already made too many contributions. His Majesty doesn't want the King of England's contributions to overshadow the fourth prince's. That's why he stopped him. The ministers looked at each other, and their faces showed reluctance. His Majesty was so biased. No one else could be so biased. At this moment, only the Sichuan Emperor and the right Prime Minister were left in the imperial study. The Sichuan Emperor stroked his beard and looked at the right Prime Minister calmly. This time, the King of England has made a great contribution. I'm afraid that he'll win the hearts of the people even more than before. Taking action at a time of crisis and saving the people from fire and water, what could be more memorable than this? The right Prime Minister couldn't figure out His Majesty's thoughts, but after all, he was a cunning old fox who had been in court for many years. He thought for a moment and then said, Your Majesty, His Royal Highness is more intelligent than others. He has led countless battles and is indeed worthy of the title of God of War. This humble subject also admires him, but, if you have something to say, just say it. There's only the two of us here. Even if you say something wrong, I won't blame you. The Sichuan Emperor waved his hand, indicating for him to continue. The right Prime Minister nodded and then continued, however, His Highness is only in his early 20s. It's inevitable that he'll have a high temperament. If he enjoys too much glory too early, I'm afraid that he won't be able to control himself. The Sichuan Emperor narrowed his eyes, which contained a bit of depth. Continue. The right Prime Minister continued, Back then, Your Majesty took back His Royal Highness's command tally for the same reason. You were worried that he'd be too arrogant with his troops. Now that the same situation has happened again, His Highness is warlike. If we allow him to lead troops to southern Song, it'll be hard to avoid the same worries as before. A cold light flashed across the Sichuan Emperor's eyes. My beloved minister is right. That's why we should accept southern Song's peace negotiations this time to avoid new problems. The right Prime Minister was secretly delighted. It seemed that His Majesty's grudge against the King of England was still as deep as before. If that's the case, His Majesty didn't change his opinion of the King of England after he won the war. Instead, His Majesty feared him even more. This discovery finally allowed him to relax. I understand. There's nothing else here. You may leave. The Sichuan Emperor's expression was indifferent as he waved his hand to dismiss him. The right Prime Minister had already gotten what he wanted. He immediately bowed and took his leave. After the right Prime Minister left, the Sichuan Emperor sat alone in the imperial study for a while. No one knew what he was thinking. The people around him all held their breaths and didn't dare to disturb him. Suddenly, the Sichuan Emperor spoke. Qiao Ji, this time, the King of England has made such a great contribution. What reward do you think I should give him? Qiao Ji was a little nervous when he was called out. He glanced at the Sichuan Emperor and hesitated before saying, This old servant thinks that His Royal Highness doesn't lack anything. This old servant doesn't know what to reward him with. Qiao Ji's words made the Sichuan Emperor glare at him unhappily. You've become more and more tactful. Qiao Ji immediately bowed. Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty. The Sichuan Emperor snorted coldly and then said, He has stayed in Lianqing for so many years. It's time for him to come back. Qiao Ji lowered his head even more when he heard this. Did His Majesty think that it would be easier to keep the King of England under his nose? Chapter 995. The southern Song army was retreating from Sichuan territory at an extremely fast speed. The Sichuan army looked at the situation and was very anxious. They were afraid that the southern Song army would retreat soon. Just as everyone was waiting for a reply from the capital, they received an imperial edict to return to the capital. The edict probably said that they had worked hard for the people and the country and had made great contributions. Now that the enemy had been defeated, their contributions could not go unnoticed. Quickly return to the capital to receive your rewards blah 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 blah. Although everyone was regretful that they could not continue attacking the southern Sung kingdom, the Sichuan emperor's imperial edict gave them supreme glory. Immediately, their thoughts of continuing the attack faded. Most soldiers went to the battlefield to protect the country. In the end, wasn't it to be promoted to an official? Xiao Su saw the joy on everyone's faces and tightened his grip on the imperial edict. At this time, the eunuch in charge of announcing the edict handed over a letter to him, saying that it was personally written by His Majesty. Xiao Su accepted it and had someone lead the eunuch away to rest. After the officers and soldiers left, Xiao Su walked back to the main seat. He was silent and deep in thought. When the edict was being announced, Chu Qingyan had already noticed the strange expression on Big Ice Cube's face. Since there were no outsiders in the main tent, she slowly walked in front of him. Her gaze fell on the bright yellow imperial edict and suddenly felt that it was somewhat dazzling. Big Ice Cube, this was clearly a perfect opportunity for us to defeat the southern Sung army. Why did His Majesty choose to give up on the peace talks? Chu Qingyan couldn't understand. Xiao Su shifted his gaze to look at her. She couldn't understand the depth of his eyes. Perhaps he felt that if we continued, it would be a waste of manpower and resources. It would be better to stop here. Chu Qingyan's face was filled with suspicion. According to her previous understanding of the Sichuan emperor, she didn't believe that he was someone who would stop while he was ahead. With his personality, he should have dealt a heavy blow to the southern Sung kingdom and taken the opportunity to keep them in his pocket. She wanted to continue asking, but she could clearly feel that Big Ice Cube didn't want to continue this topic. Thus, she cleverly stopped the topic and didn't pursue it. There must be a reason why the Ice Cube didn't say anything. She thought of something and asked curiously, Big Ice Cube, what was written in the letter that the eunuch gave you? Hearing this, Xiao Su passed the letter on the table to her. Chu Qingyan took it, opened it, and slowly frowned. She looked up with some displeasure. You want us to go back to the capital? Xiao Su nodded. He knew that the little girl had some bad memories in the capital and was subconsciously repulsed by the capital. Father said in the letter that he wants us to return to receive our reward, he explained. She had already seen what was written on it. At this moment, she pursed her lips. Big Ice Cube, is it really a simple reward? I feel a little uneasy. Xiao Su was silent for a while before reaching out to her. Chu Qingyan understood and reached out to put her hand in his palm. Then, she felt a force pulling her forward, around the table, and in front of him. Xiao Su held her hand with one hand and stroked her head with the other. Are you afraid that someone in the capital will harm you? He thought of how she had been poisoned by food when she first entered the prince's residence, and then got injured. Although she was of marriageable age now, it was still something that happened when she was 10 years old. He was worried that it would leave a shadow in her heart. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. Please, how can I be so weak? I just don't have a good impression of the capital. I haven't been back for so many years, and I don't even know what it has become. And compared to the capital, I prefer a place far away from the emperor's feet. There are no restrictions, no vicious schemes, and I can live freely. Actually, if there really was a shadow in her heart, it would be when Big Ice Cube was wrongly imprisoned. Schemes and schemes hurt people imperceptibly. She was more worried for Big Ice Cube. Would history repeat itself? She didn't want Big Ice Cube to suffer such an undeserved calamity. The person in front of him smiled with her mouth closed, her eyes shining with longing and laughter. The string in Xiao Su's heart was gently plucked. He lowered his eyes in thought for a moment, then looked up with determination. If you don't want to go back, then we won't go back. I'll write a memorial later and ask Imperial Father to allow us to return to Lian City. I think he will agree. Back then, Imperial Father had spent a lot of effort to get him away from the capital. He had always followed Imperial Father's wishes, so he probably wouldn't stop him. Chu Qingyan's face lit up when she heard this, and she nodded happily. It would be best if they didn't have to go back to that damned place. She was too happy and jumped into his arms, fiercely hugging him. I knew you were the best to me. Muada, she heavily kissed him on the cheek. At this moment, Fang Lu, who was looking for his master, lifted the curtains and walked in. Coincidentally, he saw Chu Qingyan hugging his master. His eyes widened, and his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. This, in broad daylight, wasn't little brother Chu too bold? He actually dared to take liberties with master in front of everyone? And master seemed to be enjoying it. What the hell? Who could give him an explanation? That's not right. Why was master staring at him? He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and immediately took a step back. He closed the curtain and looked around to make sure there was no one around before stiffly walking away. Chu Qingyan turned around at this time to look at the motionless curtain. She was a bit confused. I seem to have heard someone come in just now. Did I hear wrong? Xiaosu lied through his teeth. It was probably the wind. Chu Qingyan blinked and threw this matter to the back of her mind. Fang Lu did not forget what he had seen and heard today, but his heart became even more confused and worried. A dignified war god had become a homosexual just like that. His Highness was a heroic general that he had worshipped since he could remember, so how could he like little brother Chu? They were both men. At this time, Huo Ling was holding a piece of grass in his mouth as he and Turin slowly walked past him. Fang Lu immediately called out to the two of them. Huo Ling and Turin saw his constipated appearance and couldn't help raising their brows as they looked at each other. General Fang, what's wrong? Fang Lu did not know how to tell the two of them about what he had seen today, so he tactfully asked, what do you think about the relationship between His Highness and little brother Chu? Good, very good, very good. Huo Ling replied without even thinking, and his reply was crisp and clear. Fang Lu rubbed his nose. What does it mean that their relationship is very good? Don't you think it's strange? At this time, Turin replied, if master and young master's relationship isn't good, then that would be strange. The two of them did not know what Fang Lu was doing. They only felt that after they replied, Fang Lu's expression became even more constipated. Fang Lu was confused. If even Huo Ling and Turin were used to it, then His Highness and little brother Chu's relationship was very pure. Was he thinking the wrong way? Could it be that he had seen wrong today? Perhaps little brother Chu didn't walk properly and fell onto His Highness? Therefore, an unresolved question was left in Fang Lu's heart. Chapter 996. A few days later, the Sichuan Emperor received a letter of resignation from Xiaosu. It was written that he wanted to hand over his military power and return to Liancheng. If he went to the capital to receive a reward, the return trip would delay the mining of Fuli Mountain. The Sichuan Emperor had been thinking about how to make him hand over his military power willingly when he returned to the capital without being criticized by the civil and military officials. He didn't expect that he would take the initiative to hand over his military power. This made the Sichuan Emperor surprised and suspicious. What was Xiaosu planning? Was he really willing to hand over his military power? Or did he have other intentions? At this time, Eunuch Chao stood on the side and said with a smile, Your Majesty, His Highness has given up the opportunity to return to the capital. Perhaps His Highness is more willing to be an idle wild crane. The Sichuan Emperor looked at Chao Ji coldly and said, You seem to be talking too much today. Eunuch Chao immediately lowered his head and didn't dare to say anything else. In Chao Ji's eyes, he had seen the King of England since he was born. He also knew a lot about the King of England's character. He felt that in addition to his outstanding talent and ability, His Highness also had a kind heart, which was rare in the palace. He hoped that His Royal Highness, who made people feel pity for him, would stay away from the palace and live a peaceful life. He didn't want to be entangled in this whirlpool. He believed that as long as His Majesty was willing to let His Highness go, he would not threaten the Sichuan Empire. But if His Majesty insisted on making things difficult for him, he didn't know what His Highness would do. So when he saw His Majesty's expression waver, he had the courage to say these words. But the Emperor's heart was unpredictable. He didn't know what decision His Majesty would make. In the Lord's mansion. Xiao Ho's fingers pinched the information he had just received. He curled his lips, but when the smile reached his eyes, it turned cold. In the end, Imperial Father did not allow Xiao Su to lead the troops to continue fighting. At this time, a strategist named Lin Jiangdong, who had followed Xiao Ho, stepped forward and said, "Lord, I believe that the reason His Majesty does not want Xiao Su to continue fighting is that he does not want too much military power to fall into his hands. After all, when a general is outside, he does not obey the orders of the emperor. If Xiao Su wants to support the army as king, with his reputation among the people and his prestige in the army, it is not impossible." Xiao Ho chuckled. This imperial father of mine wants people to beat the dog, but he also wants to let him go. It's really funny. After all, in the court, Xiao Su is the only one who can contend with the Prince of Nansang. Lin Jiangdong shook his head. I don't know when my brother, the emperor, will be unable to endure being used by my father again and again. When will I, the emperor, be able to resist? If that day really comes, then I can watch from the sidelines and reap the benefits. Xiao Ho supported his chin with his hand, his eyes full of anticipation. Lin Jiangdong thought for a moment, and a light flashed in his eyes. Lord, who knows how long it will take for the two of them to clash? Why don't we take the initiative to give them a push? Since it will happen sooner or later, why don't we let it happen earlier? What does Sir Lin mean? Xiao Ho was interested when he heard this. His gaze was fixed on the person in front of him. Lin Jiangdong said, "Today, this one heard that His Majesty received a letter from the King of England. The King of England wants to directly return to Lian City and not enter the capital." There's such a thing? Xiao Ho raised his eyebrows. Lin Jiangdong nodded. That's right. This news came from the palace, but His Majesty hasn't given a clear answer yet. Xiao Ho raised his hand to rub his chin. This was a bit interesting. Your Highness, if His Majesty allows the King of England to return to Lian City, then this thorn in his side will always exist. Therefore, this one wants to use this opportunity to get rid of this thorn in advance. Lin Jiangdong said. What is Sir Lin's opinion? Xiao Ho looked at him. Lin Jiangdong chuckled. Since the King of England doesn't want to enter the capital, then we'll let him enter the capital. Moreover, we can use this opportunity to increase His Majesty's guard against the King of England. Previously, we had a short cooperation with the Prince of Nansang. Although he doesn't know our identity, we can still cooperate with him this time and use him to plant a seed of doubt in His Majesty's heart. When the seed sprouts, we can watch from the sidelines as His Majesty personally deals with the King of England. When two tigers fight, one is bound to be injured. As soon as Lin Jiangdong said this, Xiao Ho quickly understood. He smiled and nodded as he praised, as expected of the strategist I've carefully selected. You really live up to your reputation as the smartest person in Huan City. Lin Jiangdong said modestly, the Lord is the one who's wise and far-sighted. In front of you, this one is just waving a broadsword in front of Master Guan and making a fool of myself. Xiao Ho raised his hand. There's no need to be modest. He paused for a moment, then continued, later, I'll write a letter and have it delivered to the Prince of Nansang. I think he would also like to see my eldest brother suffer. Lin Jiangdong bowed. The Lord is right. I think the Prince of Nansang hates the King of England to the bone. Good, then let's do that. Xiao Ho slightly lifted the corner of his mouth, revealing a cold smile. At this time, the peace talks between the two countries were settled. The Southern Blue Army breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, in a temporary tent in the forest, Pang Huang was receiving treatment from the military doctor. His expression was slightly painful. Silver needles were inserted one after another, causing him to tremble in pain. He had been practicing martial arts for so many years, but he had never been injured so seriously. When he thought of this, when he thought of his defeat, he hated Xiao Su even more. If it weren't for Xiao Su, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. He was like a drowning dog that everyone wanted to beat. Just as Pang Huang was feeling depressed, Rei Luo quickly walked in. Your Highness, there's a secret letter. It seems to be from the person behind the Sichuan army. Pang Huang heard this and opened his eyes. After the military doctor removed all the silver needles, he took the letter. He frowned and opened it, only to see a paragraph written on it. The general idea was that if Xiao Su didn't have a good time, he would pretend to harass the citizens of the city and provoke him into sending out troops. When the time came, when the higher-ups blamed him, he would be accused of disobeying the imperial edict. This would also cause the emperor of Xixian to be wary of him, causing Xiao Su to have no place in the capital. After Pang Huang finished reading the letter, he chuckled. This person seems to hate Xiao Su to the bone. He even came up with this kind of scheme. However, to use me as a tool, does he really think I'm made of mud? What does your Highness mean? Rei Luo also finished reading the letter. He felt that this person was bold to use his crown prince so blatantly. Pang Huang pondered for a moment, then said, if you want to cooperate, that's fine. However, I have a condition. Before cooperating, you have to show your sincerity. Tell me who he is, then I'll decide how to cooperate. When Xiao Ho received the message, his lips curled into a smile. Good, I agree to this cooperation. After that, no one knew what conditions were written in the letter. However, Xiao Ho and Pang Huang had secretly formed an alliance. Chapter 997. Empress Liang had learned a lot about the front lines through her older brother. Today, she summoned the left prime minister to Chaoyang Palace. Why is Su unwilling to return to the capital? Doesn't he know that this consort has done so much in hopes that he can return to court so that he will have a better chance in the future? How did this consort give birth to such an unfilial son? Empress Liang was filled with anger. As soon as she saw her older brother, she vented it all out. The left prime minister was helpless against his younger sister's irritable temper. He weakly comforted her, don't be angry. His Majesty hasn't given a response yet. Empress Liang sneered, this is probably what His Majesty wants. He wants this son to get as far away as possible. Out of sight, out of mind. Younger sister. Although he had been in court for many years, when he heard his younger sister's rebellious words, he couldn't help but be shocked and angry. Empress Liang felt that she had misspoken, but she couldn't take it lying down. She couldn't accept that her years of hard work had been wasted halfway. Older brother, you know that I've endured humiliation for for so many years. Seeing that he's about to come back, my heart is about to settle. Suddenly, he's doing this to me. How am I supposed to stand in the harem? What about our Liang family? A few days ago, Consort, you even ridiculed me in front of my face. I can't take this lying down. Seeing that her older brother was angry, she began to use a handkerchief to wipe the corners of her eyes. She was about to cry. Seeing this, the left prime minister couldn't help but sigh. Younger sister, as your older brother, I'm not scolding you, but you need to change your temper. Otherwise, how can you keep His Majesty's eye among the 3,000 beauties in the harem? Empress Liang had an opinion on this, but she couldn't say it out loud. She could only frown and sulk. Prime Minister Zhuan narrowed his eyes and continued, actually, His Highness' request is not surprising. He is used to being idle outside and doesn't like the restrictions in the capital. And it can be seen that His Highness has no intention of fighting for power. But we can't let him go like this, otherwise it will be detrimental to our plan. Empress Liang nodded in agreement. She raised her eyebrows and said, I don't know how I gave birth to such an unambitious son. Look at that bitch Consort Yu's son. Although he can't compare to Su in any way, he's more obedient than Su and won't disobey his parents. What about Su No matter what I say, he will do the opposite. When I say east, he goes west. This time, we can't let him continue like this. Even if we have to tie him up, we have to tie him up and bring him back to the capital. That's right. His Highness is too willful. Minister Zhuo shook his head in disappointment. Empress Liang's anger rose again. She narrowed her cold eyes and said, then what should we do now to make His Majesty reject his request? Ministers Wu pondered for a moment, then said, I guess we can only rely on you to whisper pillow talk to His Majesty. If His Majesty agrees to His Highness' request, you can change your words. After all, you haven't seen His Highness for almost 5 years. You can use the reason of missing him to ask His Highness to come back. As long as he comes back, whether he stays or leaves is unknown. We can make arrangements. Empress Liang understood tacitly, I understand. Empress Liang twirled the teacup in her hand. Her eyes shone with a faint light. This time, she will not let Consort you be complacent. Because the Southern Sung army had not completely retreated from Sichuan territory, Xiao Su led the 3 armies to the border. On one hand, they were waiting for the Southern Sung army to leave, and on the other hand, they were reorganizing the border defense. Xiao Su said to the soldiers in front of him, we have already found out that there is a spy in the army. It was he who revealed the deployment of the army to the Southern Sung army, which led to the successive defeats. In the next few days, this prince will lead you to reorganize the defense. Yes. After everyone left, Wu Ling suddenly ran in anxiously, Master, the spy took advantage of the fact that the guards weren't paying attention and killed himself. Xiao Su frowned, what happened? A while ago, Lu Guang was in charge of interrogating this person. However, this person's mouth was very tight. No matter how hard we tried, we couldn't pry it open. So we left him hanging for 2 days. However, when we went to check on him today, he bit his tongue and killed himself. Hu Ling immediately reported. At the side, Chu Qingyan frowned, the only clue we had was also cut off. How are we going to find out who the mastermind is in the future? Xiao Su's face darkened. After a moment of silence, he said to Hu Ling, have Hu Ling investigate Wu Qing's family background. See if you can find any clues. Okay. Hu Ling nodded. Xiao Su tapped his fingers on the table. This feeling of being plotted against several times without even knowing who the opponent was really uncomfortable. Who knew what this mastermind would do in the future? Chu Qingyan stood beside him and felt his emotions. She couldn't help but say, Big ice block, it's okay. We've already successfully broken his scheme, so he can't get away with it. As long as he appears in the future, we'll deal with him accordingly. For now, there's no need to worry too much. Xiao Su turned to look at her. Under her gentle gaze, he nodded lightly. Let's worry about future matters later. Right now, we have to deal with the most important matters first. Therefore, in the next few days, Xiao Su was very busy. It could be said that he was nowhere to be seen. Considering that Chu Qingyan had just recovered from her injuries, Xiao Su didn't let her interfere in any of the matters. Therefore, Chu Qingyan basically couldn't find him. On this day, Chu Qingyan went to the main tent again but failed. She learned that Big Ice Block had gone to patrol the border. Therefore, she was so bored that she didn't inform anyone. She brought Glutinous Rice Ball and the others and slowly walked towards Big Ice Block's location. Along the way, she played with the few of them as she walked slowly. Because she came out casually, she didn't ride a horse and walked a little slowly. After more than 2 hours, she passed through a large grassland and was about to climb up a small hill. Once she passed this hill and walked for another 2 hours, she would be able to find Big Ice Block. Just as she was playing with the few of them with green foxtails and was about to climb up the hill, she suddenly heard a vigorous and heavily accented voice. How are the preparations? As soon as these words were spoken, Chu Qingyan immediately lay down. She made a hand gesture and the few of them immediately stopped playing and lay down obediently. This voice was somewhat familiar. Because she had fought with the Southern Sung army a few times, Chu Qingyan quickly recognized that the speaker was a Southern Sung person. There was a problem with a Southern Sung person appearing at the border. Chu Qingyan immediately became vigilant. The troops have already been gathered and are now heading towards the nearest town to the Sichuan border. In less than an hour, Xiao Su will receive the news. At that time, we will fall into His Highness's trap. Ha ha ha. Someone replied. The person who spoke first said with satisfaction, very good. When we succeed this time, we will be able to vent our anger. His Highness the Crown Prince is wise. That is, Chu Qingyan lay on the ground. She didn't know what they were planning, but she knew that it wasn't something good. She frowned. Chapter 998. The people on the slope chatted for a while before leaving. Chu Qingyan felt her way to the top of the slope, but they were already nowhere to be seen. She thought that she should let Big Ice Cube know about this first to give him a warning. However, she was still some distance away from the border. Even if she used her qinggong, she wouldn't be able to make it in time. At this time, Glutinous Rice Ball and the others were circling around her feet, squatting on the ground and watching her. Chu Qingyan came up with a plan. She squatted down and tore off a piece of her clothes. Then, she grabbed a leaf from the side and crushed it to write something on the cloth. After she finished writing, she whistled and Xiao Hai, who was circling in the sky, immediately flew down. She handed the cloth in her hand to Xiao Hai. Help me bring this letter to His Highness. Please, Xiao Hai. Xiao Hai held the cloth in its mouth and flew up into the sky without saying anything. It flew towards the border and quickly became a small dot in the sky. Chu Qingyan didn't dare to delay. She called a few others and immediately headed towards the border. At this time, Xiao Su was patrolling with Hualing and the others when someone suddenly came to report. Lord, someone just saw an army from southern Song heading towards a nearby village. They were aggressive and seemed to be planning to attack the people. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Fang Lu said, Your Highness, didn't southern Song hand over a peace treaty? Why would they dare to attack the people at this time? Could it be that they want to provoke a war between the two countries? I already said that southern Song went back on its words. It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. Let this subordinate go and capture them. Hualing couldn't hold back his temper and prepared to take action. Xiao Su frowned at this time. He felt that there was something wrong with the timing of southern Song's actions, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. Turan said from the side, Master, what should we do now? They dare to attack the village so brazenly. We can't just sit by and watch. Let's send troops to capture them first. Fang Lu was full of anger. He had long found them an eyesore. Why didn't they scram back to their southern Song? They actually dared to help the enemy in the Sichuan. Xiao Su nodded, protecting the people is more important. Fang Lu, Hualing, lead a group of people and set off immediately. Before Xiao Su could finish his words, he heard Jean Xian exclaim in surprise, Isn't that Little Hai? Why is it here? These words instantly attracted everyone's attention. They saw that the black dot on the horizon was slowly growing larger, and then it was descending in their direction. Xiao Hai found Xiao Su and flapped its wings, flying in front of him. When Xiao Su saw that it had something in its mouth, he couldn't help but stretch out his hand. He saw that it handed the cloth in its mouth to him. Xiao Su took a closer look and saw that it was just a piece of cloth. He looked at Xiao Su with some doubt. At this time, Hualing tilted his head and smiled, Why isn't Xiao Hai properly staying by the young master's side and picking up a rag for? Isn't this the cloth that young master is wearing? Turan was surprised. Jean Xian exclaimed, Look, there seems to be writing on this cloth. Xiao Su had recognized that this was the clothes that the little fellow usually wore, so he took it. Now that he heard this, he turned the rag over and saw that there were a few words written on it. Southern Song raid, I'm afraid it's a trap. A few other people also gathered around and muttered the same sentence, all of them revealing a surprised expression. Southern Song raid, does it mean to attack the village? Fang Lu asked with furrowed brows. It's possible. Turan nodded. Hualing was confused, how does young master know about the southern Song army attacking the village? Everyone looked at Little Hai. At this time, Little Hai was already preparing to fly back into the sky, but when she felt their gazes, she turned her head and ignored them. Troubling this prince to deliver a letter to you is already a supreme honor. This prince is tired now and needs to rest. Don't bother this prince. Everyone, Xiao Su clenched the rag in his hand. The little fellow tore off her clothes to deliver a letter. It must be an emergency, otherwise she wouldn't have done so. He pondered for a moment. Chu Yan means that the Southern Sung Army's attack on the village might be a conspiracy. This made this prince think of something. Her Majesty just ordered us not to make things difficult for the Southern Sung Army. If at this time, our army and the Southern Sung Army clashed, then we might be accused of disobeying the imperial decree. When Xiao Su said this, everyone came to a realization. They only remembered the hatred with the Southern Sung Army, but forgot about the stakes involved. They couldn't help but look at each other. So, the Southern Sung Army's move is to blame the guilty party first and make us infamy? But this subordinate doesn't understand. What's the point of doing this? Could it be that they want to provoke a war between the two countries? Fang Lu was puzzled. Fang Lu wasn't the only one who didn't understand. Almost everyone present couldn't understand. Only Xiao Su's mind was as clear as a mirror. Perhaps only he knew what Pang Huang's plan was. His imperial father was suspicious of him. If he fought with the Southern Sung Army at this time, even if it was justified, his imperial father would think that he didn't obey the imperial decree and was looking down on him. Because those in power liked their subordinates to be obedient. Everyone talked for a long time, but they didn't know what to do. If they were to interfere with the Southern Sung Army's attack, they were afraid that their superiors wouldn't understand the situation and would blame them. If they were to ignore it, they couldn't just stand by and watch the people suffer. They were in a dilemma. Master, what should we do now? Huo Ling scratched his head and asked. Xiao Su looked at them and his eyes lit up. If you want to solve this problem, it's not that there's no way. What way? Everyone was surprised. As long as it's not the Sichuan army, anyone can do it. Xiao Su's lips curved up slightly. At first, they couldn't wrap their heads around it, but they quickly understood. Master, what you mean is that if we don't wear our military uniforms, no one will know who will appear? Turin's eyes lit up and asked. That's right. Xiao Su nodded, then said, Fang Lu, Jin Xian, the two of you order a group of soldiers to take off their uniforms and disguise themselves as bandits. Pretend to rob a village, and if you encounter the Southern Sung Army, immediately start fighting. Fang Lu and Jin Xian bowed their heads and accepted the order, then immediately left. Soon, a group of soldiers and horses left the military camp. Huo Ling looked at the direction the group left and couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, young master is here. Otherwise, if we were a step late, we might have fallen into the enemy's trap. Turin nodded. Young master always appears at the right time. Xiao Su listened to the two's praise, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. At this time, a familiar voice appeared behind them. Are you guys talking bad about me? Huo Ling turned around and laughed. Speak of the devil, and he will appear. Young master, we are praising you. Chu Qingyan patted the grass off her body and glared at him. If I find out that you guys are talking bad about me behind my back, be careful of your necks. How would we dare? Huo Ling said with a grin, then pulled Turin and the others away, so that they wouldn't be lanterns for their two masters. Chu Qingyan watched them flee and felt that it was very funny. She turned around with a smile, but she was met with a pair of deep and beautiful eyes. Chapter 999. There was a clear stream in his eyes, and she was like a pear blossom reflected in the spring water. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and smiled at him. Xiao Su was still thinking about what happened just now. Seeing her bright smile under the sunlight, he was caught off guard and his heart trembled slightly. The haze in his heart was instantly reflected by her bright smile and disappeared without a trace. What are you smiling at? Xiao Su walked towards her slowly. Chu Qingyan was still smiling. I feel that you've become more beautiful after not seeing you for a few days. Glib tongue. He stood in front of her and shook his head with a smile. I'm only glib to you, so you should feel honored. Chu Qingyan snorted softly. Xiao Su raised his hand and patted her head, as if he couldn't bear to punish her. Chu Qingyan rubbed her head and glared at him a few times before getting to the point. I've already asked Xiao Hai to send a letter over. You should have received it, right? I've asked Jin Xian to take off his military uniform and go save the village. No one will know that it's our people. Xiao Su walked forward slowly, and Chu Qingyan followed behind him. I knew that you would understand what I meant when you saw those words. She pursed her lips and smiled. This was called telepathy. Xiao Su was infected by her smile and also revealed a smile. You're very smart. Of course. Chu Qingyan replied bluntly. Xiao Su smiled. Tell me what happened. Chu Qingyan didn't delay and immediately told him what she heard on the hill. Then she said, Big ice block, this Pang Huang really doesn't give up. Even if he dies, he wants to drag someone down with him. Fortunately, we defeated his wild ambition in one fell swoop. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Xiao Su was silent for a while and looked at her. I don't think this plan is his style. Chu Qingyan was taken aback. After pondering for a moment, she couldn't help but nod in agreement. You're right. Such a sinister move doesn't seem like something he would do. Perhaps someone is advising him. I suspect it's someone who worked with him before. This was because whether or not he defied the imperial decree had nothing to do with Pang Huang. However, the person who was secretly cooperating with him was different. Who was this person? Xiao Su frowned deeply. Chu Qingyan saw his habitual frown. After looking around to make sure no one was around, she secretly grabbed his hand and gently tugged on it. Don't think too much. If the person behind this wants to deal with you, they will make a move sooner or later. Let's just wait for them to show up. Don't worry too much, or else you'll waste your young life. Her words were like a stream of clear spring water, drenching the anxiety in his heart. He replied in a low voice, All right, I'll listen to you. This magnetic, pleasant, and doting tone made the corners of Chu Qingyan's lips curl up uncontrollably. She felt that her boyfriend's charm was off the charts. Big Ice Cube, let me share a few happy things with you. The skincare line we sell has been receiving a large number of orders recently, and it's getting more and more famous. Gradually, it spread from Jiangnan to Sichuan. Xiaoli complained to me that she's too busy with orders, but she also plans to open a few branches in various big towns. She's really more of a money grubber than I am. Also, the businesses that Jin Ling and Xiao Huan helped me manage, such as Wholesome Food and Delicious and Drunken River, are gradually improving. Especially Happy Carefree and Cornucopia, they're going smoothly and are attracting more and more people. I can feel the silver flowing into my pockets continuously now. And, the person in front of him seemed to have fallen into the eyes of money. She danced with joy, obviously very happy. You're doing very well, Xiao Su said sincerely. At first, he thought that she only entered the business world to pass the time because she was bored. Later, when he found out about her plans, he was very moved. Now, seeing that she had achieved results, he was sincerely gratified. Although the little fellow was usually lazy, once she decided to do something, she would go all out. This was something that he admired very much. Big Ice Cube, wait for me for a while more. In the future, we won't be afraid of anything. She took his hand and looked up with a smile. Not afraid that when the time comes, without the title of Marquis, we won't be able to support ourselves. Not afraid that when the time comes, we'll be besieged on all sides and become enemies, and we won't have the power to fight back. She had to give the most foolproof guarantee for these two outcomes that she didn't want to foresee the most. Xiao Su rested his chin on the top of her head and smiled emotionally and gently. Don't give yourself too much pressure. Remember, your future husband is not a soft rice guy. Future husband. These 5 words, when heard, really made one's heart warm and shy. Big Ice Cube, do you think His Majesty will agree to let us go back? She blinked her eyes and wrapped her arms around his waist. Her face was pressed against his chest as she asked this. Because the big ice cube had chosen a hidden place, she wasn't afraid of being seen by others, so she boldly hugged him. I don't know, but I hope that he will agree. I want to get rid of the word future as soon as possible. He revealed a gentle smile. The person in his arms had already grown up, so he didn't want to drag it out any longer. Annoying. Hearing his words, Chu Qingyan's cheeks released a hot mist and she couldn't help but lightly hit him. You don't want to marry me? Xiao Su lowered his head to look at her. I don't. She immediately denied it, but when she came back to her senses, she realized that she had been tricked by him. She angrily looked at him. Xiao Su hugged her and laughed. This boyfriend's charm was off the charts. When the soldiers not far away heard this laughter, they were shocked. This was the first time they had heard His Highness laugh like this. How strange. Chu Qingyan leaned against his chest and couldn't help but laugh. Not long after, the news of the plan's failure reached Xiao Ho's ears. My eldest brother's luck is really good. When the Southern Sung army arrived, a group of bandits entered the village and helped him block the disaster. Xiao Ho said with a hint of ridicule in his eyes. Lin Jiangdong stood to the side with a gloomy expression. I didn't think that the King of England would actually escape this disaster. Then, Your Highness, do we still need to carry out this plan again? Xiao Ho shook his head. No need. Why? This is a great opportunity. Lin Jiangdong didn't understand. Can't you see that these bandits were arranged by Xiao Su? Otherwise, why can't our people find out the origin of these bandits? Xiao Ho's face was smiling, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. Lin Jiangdong felt that it was inconceivable. The King of England is really as smart as the rumors say. Then, wouldn't our plan to lure him to the capital be put on hold? That's not the case. Xiao Ho chuckled. What does the Lord mean? Lin Jiangdong asked. Today, news came from the palace. Empress Liang made a confession in front of my imperial father, saying that she missed my eldest brother. My imperial father remembered her longing for her son, so he sent a letter to my eldest brother to return to the capital after organizing the army. Man proposes, God disposes. Xiao Ho sighed, but his eyes were filled with interest. Lin Jiangdong smiled. It seems that the Empress has helped us a lot. Xiao Ho rubbed his chin, his eyes sharp. Then, let's wait for our eldest brother to return to the capital in glory. Chapter 1000. On a calm afternoon, Xiao Su received a letter from the capital. That afternoon, he did not leave the tent. Chu Qingyan stood under a tree outside the tent. She looked at the tightly shut tent and stood there for a very long time. Until Jin Xian appeared behind her. Mistress. When there were outsiders, he called her young master. When there were no outsiders, he still called her mistress. Jin Xian, have you ever wanted to do something in your life? Chu Qingyan asked calmly with her back to him. Jin Xian thought carefully before answering. This subordinate has memories in my head. It's just these 5 years. A lifetime is too long, so I can't plan it too early. But in this subordinate's heart, what I have always wanted to do is to protect mistress and not let you come to any harm. Chu Qingyan was a little touched. She smiled gently and said, trust me. A person's life is neither long nor short. You don't have to treat protecting me as a mission. You are already in the military, and you have your own world to explore. In the future, you will have more things that you want to do and people that you want to protect. Jin Xian looked at her back and didn't reply. Although he felt that what his master usually said was reasonable, he didn't want to obey at this time. Perhaps in the future, there would be more things he wanted to do, people he wanted to protect, but he would never forget the first and most important thing he wanted to do since he could remember. But he did not need to say it to his master. Actions were more important than words. Chu Qingyan did not hear the sound behind her, but she did not care. She looked in the direction of Jiangnan. Her gaze was faint, and some indiscernible emotions were surging in her eyes. The scorching summer sun was very glaring. At this moment, she was a little dazed. If before doing what she wanted to do, she had to go through some trials and tribulations before she could do as she wished, then she would cut through these obstacles with a swift knife and remove them. Her gaze became resolute. She resolutely retracted her gaze. Then she turned around and patted Jean Xian's shoulder. Go do your work. Then, she strode towards Big Ice's tent. Jean Xin looked at her back with slight surprise. Although it was the same back view, he could feel that the master at this time was less hesitant than before, and more determined and calm. He couldn't help but smile. Master, no matter what decision you make, this subordinate swears to follow you to death. When Chu Qingyan opened the curtains, the smell of alcohol assaulted her nostrils. She frowned. Big Ice Cube was a self-disciplined person. Even if the soldiers were drinking and celebrating in the camp, he wouldn't touch a single drop of alcohol in order to maintain enough sobriety. However, he was drinking now. Was his mood at the bottom of the valley? A hint of heartache flashed through her eyes. Her footsteps paused for a moment before she continued to walk forward. On the desk, all the official documents and letters were pushed to the side. A wine pot and a bowl were placed on the table. He leaned back in his chair with his elbow on the armrest and his palm on his forehead. There was an indescribable sadness on his face. Chu Qingyan was stunned. She didn't know what she had kicked, but it made a sound. The person behind the desk spoke softly. His voice seemed to come from the horizon. Who is it? This ethereal voice didn't have the usual mellow and deep voice. It was just as light as the wind without any power. She didn't know why, but it felt like there was a gust of wind knocking against her heart. There was no echo, only the sound of the wind whistling. It was empty and a bit painful. Perhaps it was because he didn't hear the other side's response. Xiao Su pressed his forehead and then looked up. He saw the person standing in front of him with wet eyes. Xiao Su was stunned. Perhaps it was because he didn't expect her to appear here at this time. Chu Qingyan walked over and picked up the wine pot on the table. She weighed it in her hand. It was already empty. The remaining smell of alcohol was strong and it made her feel a bit dizzy. She blinked away the mist in her eyes and let it evaporate. Then she grabbed the wine pot and turned around. She complained, so you were hiding here and secretly drinking by yourself. You didn't even call me for such a good thing. You even said that we should share blessings and hardships together. Did you just treat it as wind that fell on deaf ears? Her dissatisfied tone and her widened eyes made Xiao Su think that the tears that appeared in her eyes just now were just an illusion. Xiao Su smiled bitterly and helplessly. How is drinking a good thing? I'll take you to drink something else next time. If it's not a good thing, you're still drinking by yourself. Chu Qingyan played with the wine pot in her hand. Xiao Su looked at her naive and innocent appearance. His lips curved, but he felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Suddenly, he felt an indescribable tiredness. Chu Qingyan turned around and saw that his expression wasn't right. Her eyes focused and she couldn't help but put down the wine pot. She walked behind him and reached out to press a few acupuncture points on his head. Then she skillfully helped him massage them. Because of her massage, his spirit was much better. But right now, there was something on his mind and he didn't know how to tell the little fellow. He couldn't help closing his eyes and silently thinking. His brows unconsciously furrowed again. Chu Qingyan knew what he was worried about. Seeing the creases on his brows, she gave a faint sigh in her heart. Then she spoke in a light tone. Big Ice Cube, when are we going back to the capital? When these words fell, Xiao Su opened his eyes in a daze and looked at her. His voice was a little surprised, you know. Chu Qingyan saw that he was so shocked and pursed her lips. Then she smiled and winked at the pile of documents on the table. Here, you didn't even put them away. I saw them when I came in. Xiao Su followed her gaze and saw that the letter he was reading today had not been folded yet. It was just spread out on the table, so it was no wonder that she knew. He rubbed his forehead. He had been thinking about how to tell her earlier, but now he didn't need to think about how to say it. Imperial father said that Imperial mother misses us very much and wants us to go back first. We'll talk about the rest later. He didn't hide it and directly said it. Chu Qingyan silently cursed in her heart. She probably missed the big ice cube. This thorny daughter-in-law of hers wanted nothing more than to see the big ice cube. Big ice cube, the monarch's orders can't be disobeyed. Let's go back, she said in a relaxed tone. Xiao Su raised his brows at her. Haven't you always wanted to go back to Jiangnan? He thought that she would be sad for a while. Am I someone who doesn't understand the big picture in your eyes? She snorted and asked in return. Our family's Ayan has always understood the big picture. I'm just afraid that you'll be unhappy and feel wronged. Xiao Su reached out to caress her cheek as he said this in a tender voice. If I make things difficult for you because of me, then I'm really useless. She tilted her head towards his palm and smiled. Actually, I know that you're feeling very sad. You don't want to turn your back on me and want to take me back. But if you're stuck between the monarch's orders and me, then I'd rather you not have me as an option. Even if I have to cut off my wings, I want you to be free of worries. Ayan, Xiao Su's eyes were moved. Thank you for your understanding and companionship along the way. Chapter 1001. Big Ice Cube, don't secretly drink alone in the future. Wine is to liven things up, not to drown your sorrows. She solemnly instructed. Xiao Su stroked her head and nodded with a smile. It didn't matter to him whether he returned to the capital or not. But he knew that the little fellow didn't like it. He had promised to take her back to Jiangnan, but he didn't think that his father and mother would be so determined to have him return to the capital. Going back on his word was a small matter, but more importantly, he had many uncertainties about entering the capital. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to control the situation and let them escape unscathed. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something and looked at the person in front of him. Ayan, the imperial court doesn't know that Chu Yan is you. Go back to Jiangnan first. If father asks about you, I'll find an excuse. Wait for me in Jiangnan. I'll go back to find you after I'm done with the matters in the capital. Chu Qingyan was unhappy when she heard this. No, I'll go wherever you go. You can't leave me behind. Xiao Su's expression was solemn. Ayan, listen to me this once. She shook her head and firmly rejected his suggestion. No, who knows what kind of dragon's pool or tiger's den is in the capital this time. I can't let you go alone. We'll share fortune and misfortune together. This can't be changed. Since she had already said this, she couldn't care about anything else and directly broke the window paper between the two of them. Everyone knew that the appointment of the crown prince was an urgent matter for the imperial court. If Big Ice Cube was far away from the capital, perhaps he wouldn't be affected. But at this critical moment, the imperial court summoned him back. She didn't want to think about what they were planning, whether it was good or bad. Xiao Su looked at her in a daze. Ayan, it's okay, Big Ice Cube. I'll go with you in the rain. Chu Qingyan reached out to hold his fingers and looked up with a smile. He subconsciously held her fingers tightly. Okay, but you can't return to the capital as Chu Yan. She understood this, so she immediately nodded. After the two of them finished talking, they decided on a date to return to the capital. At this time, the Southern Sung army had already retreated from Sichuan. On this day, Chu Qingyan watched from afar as the army left in a grandiose manner. The afternoon sun was particularly scorching. Just by standing still, he was already sweating profusely. Master, His Highness, and the others have already left. Su Yi stood behind her and reminded her. He was worried that his master would be poisoned by the scorching sun. That would be bad. Chu Qingyan retracted her gaze and said to the people behind her, "We'll take a detour to Xuanyang Road and then head to the capital." Only Chu Yan was by Xiao Su's side as his right-hand man. However, Chu Qingyan should be in Liancheng, so if she wanted to return to the capital, she had to go back to the capital through Liancheng to avoid being discovered by someone with ulterior motives. Therefore, before returning to the capital, she had to part with Big Ice Cube for a short while. Big Ice Cube had already made the arrangements. At this time, the people who were pretending to be her had already set off from Liancheng. When the time came, she would meet up with them and directly head to the capital. She put on her bamboo hat, jumped onto her horse, and led the howling cavalry on their journey. Xiao Ran, who was far away in the capital, was restless the entire day when he heard that they were returning to the capital. He kept muttering in the hall. When Consort Yu found out that her son missed Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan so much, her entire face turned ugly. It's already been 4 to 5 years. Why is Ranner still thinking about them? Her voice was somewhat cold. The palace maid in front of Consort Yu, Jade Rabbit, couldn't help but say, I heard that His Highness the 4th Prince has been sending people out of the palace hall to look for news of 9th Miss Chu Qingyan. It's been so long, but Ranner still hasn't forgotten that little slut. Consort Yu rubbed her forehead. She remembered that a long time ago, Ranner had even learned to talk back to her because of that little slut. These unpleasant memories caused her expression to turn even uglier. His Highness had a short interaction with her in the past. Perhaps they were childhood playmates. His Highness values friendship and loyalty, which is why he misses her. Once the two of them meet again, perhaps their friendship won't be as deep as before. After all, so many years have passed. Seeing that her consort was angry, Jade Rabbit immediately spoke up for Xiao Ran. Hearing this, Consort Yu's expression eased a little, but her eyes were still dark. Ranner is already of marriageable age. We can't let him waste his energy on unimportant people. If it weren't for the fact that this consort wanted to stop Xiao Su from using marriage to strengthen his power, this consort would have already gotten rid of Chu Qingyan and destroyed Ranner's hopes. With Chu Qingyan around, it's the same as cutting off Xiao Su's influence. After all, the Chu family is just a small, shabby family that can't even be seen in public. Your Highness is right. His Highness is also of marriageable age. When the time comes, Your Highness and His Majesty will be able to pick a suitable consort for His Highness, said Jade Rabbit with a smile. Only then did Consort Yu's expression turn for the better. However, Xiao Su's return to the capital wasn't a small threat. She had to quickly gather the officials of the court and have them stand on Ranner's side. She thought that she had to properly discuss the next step with her senior martial brother during this period of time. Ever since they received news that their lord had returned to the capital, the King of England's estate swept away its usual silence and began to bustle with activity. Bright colors were even decorated. Everyone in the estate was swamped with work. Some scrubbed, some moved flowers, and some hung lanterns. Normally, there weren't so many people, but now, there were busy figures everywhere. Older sister Hong Yi, we've already plowed all of the flowers and plants. Is there anything else we need to do? Asked a young maidservant crisply as she ran into the courtyard. A woman dressed in red and pink gauze stood at the top of the steps. Her hair was tied up in a bun with a jade hairpin and her face was lightly powdered. She looked pure and beautiful, but her gentle brows carried a dignified aura that didn't allow anyone to be impudent. She was the person in charge of this inner courtyard, Hong Yi. She stood there handsomely. After hearing the servant's request, she thought for a moment and said, "Go, and bring out the brocade screen and blue cloud pine flower pots from the storeroom." Yes. The young maidservant immediately skipped away. Hong Yi looked into the distance, her eyes filled with unconcealable joy. Lord was finally coming back. But when she thought of Chu Qingyan who came back with him, her eyes darkened. At this time, a charming voice sounded. "Older sister Hong Yi, did you have the purchasing staff buy those ingredients for me?" Hong Yi immediately restrained the look in her eyes when she heard this, then turned to look at the person walking in from the corridor. The person who came was wearing a light yellow dress. Her skin was fair and supple, and the corners of her mouth were curled up in a smile. "Huang Yi. I've already bought them. They'll be delivered in 2 days. Don't worry." Hong Yi replied with a smile. "With your words, I'm relieved." Huang Yi walked in front of her and let out a big sigh of relief. I feel like Lord and the little princess Consort are coming back. Everyone is coming back to life. The entire estate will no longer be lifeless. Huang Yi giggled as she looked around. The 3 words little princess consort made Huang Yi's eyes turn cold. Then she chuckled in agreement. That's right, the estate will finally welcome its owner back. Chapter 1002. As time went by, the weather became hotter and hotter. Sichuan's midsummer was like a furnace. Everyone was suffering in the fire. Cloud Dream Lake was steaming, and Sichuan Kingdom was shaking. At this moment, a large amount of ice cubes had been placed in the imperial study, dispelling much of the heat. Sichuan Emperor held the memorials that had been sent to him, his expression dark. The weather hasn't reached its hottest point, but there are already drought conditions in several towns. Left Prime Minister Liang Song stood up. In the past, the drought would appear half a month later. Now that it has appeared earlier, I'm afraid it's because there isn't as much rain this year. After Liang Song finished speaking, the others all agreed. Then what good plan does Left Prime Minister have to resolve the current situation? Right Prime Minister Fu Jianrong asked with a fake smile. Left Prime Minister pursed his lips. This sly old fox really knew how to seize the opportunity to kick the problem back to him. At this moment, the Emperor's gaze was already on him. He hurriedly pondered. Next time, he would get back at this sanctimonious old fox. Your Highness, I feel that we can temporarily relocate the people in the drought-affected areas. When the drought is over, we can let them go back. At the same time, we have to allocate the disaster relief funds. After Left Prime Minister answered, Right Prime Minister said, this is a temporary solution, but it can also temporarily prevent the people from suffering. Left Prime Minister's expression was ugly. This drought was a natural disaster, and it was impossible to completely resolve it with manpower and resources. Right Prime Minister's words were suspicious of him gloating. Sichuan Emperor also cast a dissatisfied look at Left Prime Minister because of Right Prime Minister's words. Do you have any other plans? Left Prime Minister looked embarrassed, and his gaze towards Right Prime Minister was full of resentment. After an hour, the discussion of the country's affairs was almost done. Sichuan Emperor asked casually, Minister of War, where are the 3 armies led by General Pingnan now? Being called out, the Minister of War immediately stood up and respectfully said, they have already reached Lin City. Based on their speed, they will reach the capital in 3 days. Very good. Sichuan Emperor stroked his beard and said, Minister of Rights, you will be in charge of welcoming the army's triumphant return. Make it lively and let the army feel the importance of the imperial court. Don't disappoint the heroes. The Minister of Rights did not dare delay and immediately stepped forward to receive the order. If there's nothing else, you may all leave. Sichuan Emperor looked a little tired as he waved his hand at everyone. Everyone could see His Majesty's impatience, so they all retreated. As soon as the group left the imperial study, the heat wave hit them. Everyone wanted to return to the imperial residence immediately. At this time, Fu Jianrong walked to Liang Song and said with a faint smile, Left Prime Minister, how is your father doing in the mansion? Liang Song and Liang Bai were preparing to go back together. Hearing Fu Jianrong's call, they could not help but stop and look at him. Liang Song did not forget how Fu Jianrong had made things difficult for him in front of His Majesty today. With a fake smile, he said, Thank you for your concern, Right Prime Minister. My father is healthy and doing well. That's good. Your father suddenly fell ill and retired from the imperial court a few years ago. It is really a pity that I can no longer share His Majesty's burdens in the imperial court with him. Fu Jianrong's tone was somewhat regretful, but when he looked at Liang Song, he changed the topic and said with an enigmatic smile, However, since Minister Liang has inherited the position of Prime Minister from your father, we 2 Prime Ministers must work together in the future to benefit the people and share His Majesty's burdens. Right Prime Minister is right. Liang Song smiled. Then this old man will not disturb you. I will leave first. Goodbye. Fu Jianrong nodded slightly, then turned and walked towards his colleagues. Right Prime Minister, take care. After Fu Jianrong had walked away, Liang Bai lowered his voice and asked his eldest brother, "What does the right prime minister mean by suddenly saying these words to you?" The smile on Liang Song's face suddenly disappeared. He said in an unhappy tone, "Did you not understand what he meant?" "He said that I am not as good as father." Liang Bai frowned. In these years, the right prime minister has become more and more arrogant. Liang Song snorted softly. If not for the absence of the King of England in these years, the right prime minister's party would not have any scruples. In addition, the civil and military officials have all been replaced in recent years, and more people are relying on them. We would not have fallen to this point. Liang Bai's expression also turned ugly. Then he said, "But the King of England will be back in a few days. I think this is the time for us to regroup." Liang Song nodded, but he was still a little worried. The King of England does not like to get involved in the affairs of the court. This time we have to convince him that the big picture is the most important thing. He cannot be willful anymore. "Big brother, you are right." Liang Bai agreed. The two of them walked away as they talked. The news of the triumphant return of the three armies spread like wildfire inside and outside the capital. The people rushed to tell each other, looking forward to their return. Suddenly, the capital began to bustle with noise and excitement. Everyone's face was brimming with anticipation, looking forward to the return of the heroes. And the protagonists, at this time, were still outside the capital, marching leisurely. Because the weather during the day was too hot, Xiao Su basically ordered the three armies to rest during the day and march at night. They were only one day's journey away from the capital. At this time, Xiao Su still ordered the large army to stop and rest. He took the water bottle from his subordinate. When he was about to open it and drink, Huo Ling ran over with a head full of sweat. "Master, master," seeing that Huo Ling's clothes were soaked with sweat, Xiao Su unscrewed the cork and threw it to him. "Drink some water first." Huo Ling gave an "ai" sound and immediately poured the water down his parched throat. When the cool water entered his mouth, he felt like he had come back to life and the joy on his face could not be hidden. "Master, let me tell you a piece of good news. Young Princess Fei's carriage is almost here. It will arrive here tomorrow." He knew that in the days when young Princess Fei was not by his side, his master seemed to have returned to his past unsmiling self. Although the weather was very hot and it was good to have his master emitting cold air by his side, the feeling of ice and fire facing the sky was really not good. He missed the days when young Princess Fei was here. Because of Huo Ling's words, Xiao Su's hanging heart relaxed. He was silent for a moment before saying, "All right, send down the order. Don't march tonight. We'll leave tomorrow." Huo Ling understood tacitly. His master wanted to wait for young Princess Fei to travel together. In any case, they were entering the capital to discuss merits and rewards, so there was no rush. So he made a sound of acknowledgement. Xiao Su did not pay attention to Huo Ling's teasing expression. With his hands behind his back, he looked into the distance. A faint joy that even he did not notice appeared in his eyes. In this world, there would always be a person that you were reluctant to part with when they left, but when they came, they made you happy. "Ayan, after not seeing you for a few days, my heart misses you." Chapter 1003. As if she felt something, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but turn to look in the direction of the capital. Big Ice Cube and the others should be arriving at the capital soon, right? They had been gone for more than half a month. From the time they met until now, they hadn't been separated for so long. What should she do? She didn't even want to be separated for a day. Was this the feeling of being in love? Did she want the two of them to stick together all day long? Thinking about it, she wondered if she was like those young girls with a young girl's heart now. That wouldn't do. She was an independent woman. She had to have pursuits, dreams, and beliefs. But she patted her head. Her pursuits, dreams, and beliefs, weren't they that person she hadn't seen for more than half a month? She couldn't help but laugh at herself for being so disappointing. But, wasn't life about finding a semicircle that matched you, and then rolling together until the end of life? As she let her imagination run wild, she burst out laughing. It could be seen that without the big ice cube, her imagination was getting bigger and bigger. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the carriage wall. Chu Qingyan restrained the wanton smile on her face and said with a light smile, "What is it?" "Esteemed Princess Consort, there's a letter for you." The person who spoke was the maid Xiaoxi from the Lianqing Palace. Usually, Xining was in charge of her daily expenses. Because she arranged for Xining to be in charge of her businesses in Jiangnan, the steward arranged another maid to serve her this time. Because she was afraid of trouble, the steward only arranged for Xiaoxi. Other than Xiaoxi, she also had a maid, Jasper. But she was different from ordinary maids. She was chosen from the Howling Cavalry. On the surface, she was a maid, but in reality, she was her personal bodyguard. There was a reason why she was chosen. Chu Qingyan took the letter, wondering if it was from the big ice cube. When she opened it, she saw the familiar handwriting. Her eyes couldn't help but curve. It was a letter from her parents. They wrote how much they missed her in the big ice cube, talked about the interesting things that happened in Jiangnan recently, and finally asked when they would return. Reading to the end, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but recall the night before she left Jiangnan. Her mother was carefully sewing clothes for her by candlelight, and her father was sitting around the table looking down. She didn't know why, but her heart was warm and dull. She rubbed her moist eyes and somewhat missed her father and mother. But soon, her eyes filled with a gentle smile, she said to the outside, "Jasper, brush, inks, paper, and inkstone." "Yes." The reply was straightforward, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. As expected of someone from the Howling Cavalry. Soon, the brushes, the ink, and the paper, the ink. Bai Yu was dressed in neat clothes and was full of vigor. Her appearance was delicate and pretty, but she didn't speak much. She always had a straight face, giving people a feeling that she was very unapproachable. Chu Qingyan was the only one who knew that hers strictness came from the Howling Cavalry. Hers was in fact cute, but she was born with a poisonous tongue. "Jasper, what are we eating tonight?" Chu Qingyan couldn't help but want to tease her when she saw Jasper grinding. "I heard from Su Yi that it's a roasted rabbit." Jasper replied seriously. "What if I want to eat fish?" Chu Qingyan tilted her head to look at her. Jasper didn't show any signs of being in a difficult position. She continued to say seriously, "Then this subordinate will go catch some fish for you later." PFFF, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. "Jasper, I'm just teasing you. You're no longer a shadow guard. In the future, you can leave this kind of thing to Su Yi and the others. You don't have to do it yourself." Jasper nodded, then she said, "Actually, this subordinate catches fish the fastest in the Howling Cavalry. Su Yi and the others can't compare." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. All right. When we return to Jiangnan, I'll let you catch fish properly. It's best if people don't suppress their natural instincts." Jasper nodded seriously. After talking for a long time, she still didn't see Jasper reveal a smile. Chu Qingyan blinked and said with a smile, "Jasper, why are you always so serious? Show me a smile." Jasper looked at her seriously and said seriously, "Master, it's fine if you tease this subordinate here, but don't do it when you return to the capital. Otherwise, His Highness will get jealous. Nothing will happen to you, but this subordinate will suffer." Being corrected so seriously, Chu Qingyan was stunned for a long time. It was as if she was choked by this adorable subordinate's words. "What you said really makes sense. I'm actually speechless. Jasper, I'm a little thirsty. Is there still sour plum soup?" "Master, including the bowl just now, you've already drunk 3 bowls. Ah. It's such a hot day. I only have this hobby. Don't tell me you want to take it away from me too." "Master, for the sake of your health, you should put this hobby away first." Chu Qingyan facepalmed. So unromantic. She helplessly waved her hand to dismiss her. She really picked a servant girl who could anger people to death anytime and anywhere. But after facepalming, she couldn't help but laugh. With such an amusing servant girl around, the journey wouldn't be boring. Jasper alighted from the carriage and prepared to leave. Xiaoxi came up to her. She glanced at the carriage and then reached out to hold Jasper's hand. Unexpectedly, Jasper dodged to the side. Xiaoxi's smile froze before it could spread. Jasper indifferently looked at her, as if she didn't notice the other's awkwardness at all. "What's the matter?" Xiaoxi immediately smiled when she heard this. She innocently asked, "Big sister Jasper, what did the Princess Consort say to you that made you so happy?" "Master is naturally cheerful. It's normal for her to be happy," Jasper indifferently said. Xiaoxi choked, but she quickly smiled and greeted her, "Big sister Jasper is right." Bai Yu ignored her and continued walking forward. However, Xiaoxi persevered and followed closely behind her. After that, she said in an innocent tone, "Don't worry. Big sister Bua, the Princess Consort and His Highness have an engagement. When will they get married?" Not only is Xiaoxi curious, everyone in the palace is looking forward to it. The Princess Consort and His Highness are really a match made in heaven. How could this Jasper walk so fast, taking large strides? One step was equivalent to 3 of her steps. She didn't look like a girl at all. Xiaoxi secretly criticized her in her heart. Jasper suddenly stopped in front of her. Xiaoxi was filled with joy, thinking that Jasper was interested in her topic, so she immediately ran to catch up. Who would have thought that Jasper would coldly look at her? "Xiaoxi, as a servant, the most important thing is to be careful with your words. Don't ask about things you shouldn't ask about. You will know about things you should know about sooner or later. You need to remember these words. You don't need to follow me, you can go do your own things." After saying this, Jasper turned to leave. Xiaoxi watched her leave and angrily stomped her foot. What qualifications did this Jasper have to give her that look? She was still a first-class maid in the palace. When she went to the capital, she would at least be a first-class maid by the Princess Consort's side. She really didn't want face. Once she entered His Highness' eyes, she would definitely make this cheap maid look good. After cursing in her heart, Xiaoxi turned her head and put on a smiling face to welcome people. She walked towards the servants coming out of Lian City. Jasper walked under the tree and Su Yi threw her a pot of water. He asked, "What were you talking to that girl about?" "Nothing, I was just watching a clown jump up and down." Su Yi smiled, "It's better if you don't speak." Jasper coldly looked at him and took a pot of water for her master. Chapter 1004. The biggest surprise in life was when the person you were constantly thinking about appeared in front of you without warning. When Su Yi said, "Master, we have already met up with the 3 armies," she was completely stunned. Before this, no one had told her that she would meet the big ice block before entering the capital. She always thought that they would only meet after he entered the capital to pay respects to the emperor. This accident came too suddenly and was too surprising. Before the carriage came to a stop, she lifted the curtain without thinking. However, there was already a person standing in front of her. Black-robed and black hair, looking extremely noble. It made her forget to get off the horse and just stared at him in a daze. And in Xiao Su's eyes, she was like a bright ray of light that suddenly appeared from behind the curtain and shined into his eyes. The early morning wind brought with it moist dew as it blew towards the 2 of them. It blew up the corners of her clothes and blew away the thin veil covering the beauty's face. Her white skin was like an eggshell that had been peeled off, soft and smooth. Her forehead was full and the silver-red hair that hung down from her hair made her eyes look lively and charming. Her face was lightly covered with makeup and her vermilion lips naturally curved, giving people a feeling of a pleasant smile. Her elegant charm could not be hidden by her simple dress. Just this one glimpse was enough to make people envious. He quietly came to the front of the carriage to give her a surprise, but he did not think that she would give him a stunning surprise. He had not seen her in female clothes for many months. Suddenly seeing her, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. Even if he could face thousands of enemies without batting an eyelid, he could not help being intoxicated by her beauty. Chu Qingyan looked up and saw him. She wanted to throw herself at him, but when she remembered that there were outsiders around, she suppressed the impulse in her heart. She got off the carriage and slowly walked in front of him. She wanted to greet him, but she did not think that he would just stare at her without any reaction. She muttered in her heart, why wasn't he as excited as she was? Did he really miss her? Big Ice Block, are you not happy to see me? She lifted her veil and looked up at him, her voice filled with disappointment. The person in front of him was as beautiful as a flower, as beautiful as jade. How could he not be happy? He lifted his hand and pulled the veil of her veil aside, revealing her entire face. The corners of his lips curled up as he said dotingly, I haven't seen you for a few days. You've lost some weight. As soon as he said that, Chu Qingyan couldn't care less about the problem she was struggling with. She immediately looked down at herself and muttered softly, I've obviously gained weight. Xiao Su chuckled. You're so annoying. Hearing his laughter, Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. Xiao Shi was separated by Su Yi and the others outside the carriage. At this time, she really wanted to go forward and show her face beside His Highness. Unfortunately, these people did not know what was going on. They took her to the side and did not let her come in contact with the two masters. Arms could not win against thighs, so Xiao Shi gave up on going forward. She turned around and asked, Sirs, why is it that His Highness is here and we are not allowed to serve him? Su Yi did not answer, but Su San beside him answered, Right now, Master does not need you to serve him. I think that His Highness would rather have no one by his side. Xiao Shi did not understand. At this time, Jasper came to her side and glanced at her, just be direct. His Highness only wants to see Master right now. Everyone else is just flowers and grass. It's best if they are not an eyesore. Xiao Shi's face turned hot from her gaze. It was as if her thoughts had been discovered in front of everyone. If you really want to do something, then come with me to the stream to wash the vegetables. Jasper ignored her and continued walking forward. Xiao Shi lowered her head and followed, but she couldn't help looking back at the two standing in front of the carriage. His Highness was not as cold as the rumors said. Wasn't he very gentle to Princess Consort right now? It really made people envious. If it were her, she would be willing to be a cow or a horse for the rest of her life. The evening wind was not as hot as the day, but mixed with the smell of grass. It was light and made people feel comfortable. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su leaned against a big tree trunk. Their eyes were looking at the capital that they were about to arrive. Big Ice Cube, are you ready? Chu Qingyan asked without rhyme or reason, but she knew that the person beside her could understand. There's nothing to worry about, Ian. Xiao Su reached out to hold her hand and said with a faint smile. Their fingers intertwined, swearing that they would never leave each other's hand. I believe in you. Good, let's go. After the two groups of people met up, they headed toward the capital in a grandiose manner. When Xiao Ran heard that Chu Qingyan was returning to the capital, he was filled with excitement. He would occasionally pace back and forth to wait for news. Your Highness the Fourth Prince, His Royal Highness and Miss Chu have already arrived 10 miles away from the city. They will enter the city in 2 hours. Sang Yu came back from outside and immediately reported to His Highness. Xiao Ran suddenly stood up from his seat. His face was filled with pleasant surprise, really? Yes, the Minister of Rights has already led the civil and military officials outside the palace, waiting for the soldiers to enter the capital. Sang Yu continued to report. Good, prepare a sedan for me. Before Xiao Ran could finish speaking, he heard a voice outside the door, Eunuch Chao requests an audience. What was Eunuch Chao doing here at this time? Although Xiao Ran was a bit impatient, he still let him in. Eunuch Chao walked in with a horsetail whisk. When he saw Xiao Ran, he greeted him with a smile and said, Your Highness the Fourth Prince, His Majesty asked this old servant to bring you a message. He said that the 3 armies have entered the capital and asked you to welcome them in His Majesty's place. You must set off immediately without delay. Xiao Ran scratched his head. He was actually asked to do such an important thing. Although he was a bit timid, he immediately agreed when he thought about how he could see Qing Yan at a close distance. Eunuch Chao watched Xiao Ran leave with his men. He smiled and returned to the imperial study to report his orders. The return of the 3 armies in victory was a major event that would cause a sensation. Early in the morning, men and women of all ages in the capital walked out of their homes. They waited from the first glimmer of dawn until the sun rose high in the sky. The scorching sun could not dampen their anticipation. At this moment, the fragrance of tea rose in spirals from a private room. Lord, this morning, His Majesty ordered the 4th prince to welcome the 3 armies in his place, someone said from behind the curtain. A hand that was prettier than a woman's took the teacup on the table and gently sipped from it. His pink lips were stained with water, like a flower petal stained with dew, glossy and beautiful beyond compare. That person slowly said, Imperial Father's actions are to let 4th brother make friends with these generals. It is also to warn some of the officials in court that even if eldest brother returns, he will not be able to shake 4th brother's position in his heart. So that's how it is. This subordinate understands. At this moment, 2 maidservants walked out and lifted the veil, revealing a face that was as gentle as jade behind the curtain. It was Xiao Ho. Chapter 1005. It's almost time for the 3 armies to enter the city. If there's nothing else, you may leave to prevent others from discovering your whereabouts. Xiao Ho waved his hand, and the man bowed and carefully left. After the private room returned to silence, Xiao Ho continued to drink his tea. His gaze swept across the city and into the distance. What will come, will come. 4 years is long enough. It's time to put an end to it. He muttered to himself. At this moment, Lin Jiangdong appeared in front of him. Is there any movement from the Prince of Nansang's side? Xiao Ho looked at him. Lin Jiangdong bowed and replied, the Prince of Nansang sent a letter saying that he has to deal with important matters in the court. I'm afraid he won't have much time to contact you. However, he said that there's something he wants to tell you in advance. Xiao Ho raised his eyebrows slightly. What's the matter? After some time, the Southern Blue Empire will send an envoy to our country. Lin Jiangdong bowed. Oh. Xiao Ho dragged his words. The Prince of Nansang said that this could be an opportunity for him to form an alliance with you. When the time comes, we'll discuss it. Lin Jiangdong repeated the words in the letter to him. Xiao Ho nodded. Although he didn't know what the Prince of Nansang was planning, at this moment, their enemies were the same. Therefore, the enemy of an enemy was a friend. For the time being, the 2 of them could form an alliance. Good. Send a letter back to him. Tell him to focus on the country's affairs. If there's anything, this prince will discuss it with him. Xiao Ho smiled. Yes. Xiao Ho held the teacup in his hand. His gaze fell on the light yellow ripples in the water. He smiled lightly. One was cunning, the other was patient. They would definitely be the best allies. At this moment, the 3 armies had arrived outside the city. They were getting closer and closer to the city gates. In front was the cavalry camp, followed by the arrow formation. Behind them was Xiao Su and the rest. Behind them was the infantry camp. It was almost noon. Today's sun was very suitable. It hid behind the clouds and didn't come out. The earth enjoyed a short period of coolness. In front of her was a solemn and orderly procession, marching towards the city gates. Amidst the uniform footsteps, she suddenly heard a commotion from afar. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but lift the curtains, and the thick city walls came into view. A row of soldiers stood guard on top of the walls, looking very strict and solemn. Looking at the city wall, Chu Qingyan's memories started to blur. 5 years ago, she had just stepped into this strange world. She had thought that she would spend the rest of her life in Mao village. She had not expected the arrival of the Chu family to drag her into this bustling capital. Back then, when she sat in the carriage and looked at the city, it was completely different from now. At that time, she was fearful and uneasy. She pretended to be strong and wanted to protect the safety of the people around her. She didn't know if she could walk out unscathed. Now, although she was uncertain about the future, she had someone to rely on. She was no longer isolated and helpless. She didn't need to force herself. Moreover, she already had the power to protect herself and others. Thinking of this, the three armies had already entered the city. When the carriage passed through the city gates, she had a premonition that she was about to enter a different life. When the darkness slowly receded, a strong light appeared. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but squint. Her veil blocked a part of the light, but the hubbub of voices poured into her ears. Your Highness. His Royal Highness. The hero has returned. This is our warrior, our hero. Her eardrums were about to burst from the shouting. The sound wave was louder than the one before. It was about to drown her. Chu Qingyan adjusted to the light. When she opened her eyes, she saw a sea of people. There were men, women, old, and young. It could be said that the whole nation was mobilized. At this time, they were waving their hands and cheering with tears in their eyes. The most they shouted was her family's big ice cube. She couldn't help but follow the crowd's gaze and look at the person walking at the front. The silver armor on his body shone brightly under the light. He looked forward with a cold expression. One hand was holding the reins, and the other hand was habitually holding the sword at his waist. Although there was a silver mask on his face and his face couldn't be seen clearly, his noble and elegant appearance and his aura had already subdued the people around him. They couldn't help but want to worship him. This was the halo of a proud son of heaven. It was also the glory of a person who had gone through hundreds of battles. At this moment, she suddenly understood what it meant to be respected by thousands and loved by the people. She couldn't help but want to become a fan and shout the name of her idol. However, no matter how enthusiastic the people were, no matter how high their emotions were, they couldn't shake that figure at all. It was as if he was walking among the flowers. Every step was steady and calm, undisturbed by the outside world. This wasn't aloofness, but the rigor of a soldier. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile. This was the person she loved. He was indomitable and indomitable. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, his expression wouldn't change. He was the people's faith and their hero. A warm current of glory flowed through her body. Although she couldn't be by his side and enjoy the attention, she was already satisfied to be able to guard behind him and silently accompany him. She gently put down the curtain, smiling like a flower. Jasper stood by the side and was also affected by the noise outside. She turned to look at her master. His Highness is very loved by the people. Chu Qingyan nodded, but the smile on her face didn't disappear. It's just that I don't know if this is good or bad. Let's take one step at a time. Jasper pursed her lips and nodded. All the seats with the best view in the city had been snatched up as early as 3 days ago. The number of women in the boudoir, the madams of famous families who couldn't show their faces, the children of influential families, and the high officials and nobles were countless. If any building collapsed, it could casually fall down and hit the famous people in the city who were rarely seen. The unmarried young women in the boudoir looked out of the windows in groups of 3 to 5, looking for the figures of the young soldiers. According to the national law, once the soldiers who performed meritorious deeds on the battlefield returned to the capital, they would be rewarded. If the young and promising soldiers were still unmarried, they would be highly sought after by the entire capital. Every aristocratic family, high officials, and nobles wanted to marry their daughters to these young men. This was not only the family's glory, but also a good place for their daughters to go. Therefore, rather than saying that they came to admire the handsome and heroic appearance of the 3 armies, it was better to say that they came to see how these young soldiers looked like in advance so that they could have an idea in their hearts. The young men were promising, handsome, and extraordinary. Therefore, Jean Xian, Fang Lu, and the others became the light in everyone's eyes. These young men were still inexperienced. Although they were used to fighting and killing on the battlefield, it was hard to avoid being embarrassed by so many burning eyes. Each of them puffed out their chests and straightened their backs, telling themselves that they wouldn't be disturbed. However, even more people's gazes were attracted by the person in the lead. His silver robe fluttered in the wind, and his appearance was imposing. He was the biggest contributor to the enemy's retreat this time. Xiao Su. Chapter 1006. At this moment, a conversation could be heard from a private room in a tea house. Sister Lingy, look, look. That young man looks so energetic. The spear in his hand is so long and thick. It looks so heavy, but he can actually carry it. He's amazing. A beautiful girl in a pink and green floral dress supported her chin with both hands and tried her best to look outside. She wished she could squeeze her entire body out of the room. Little sister Tianyue, you have to be careful. We sneaked out, don't let anyone discover us. A soft voice advised. Yu Tianyue quickly retracted her body and turned back to stick her tongue out at her. Then, she continued to point at the soldiers and said with a blushing smile, Sister Lingy, I heard from my mother that your father intends to help you choose a man from these soldiers to be your Mr. Right. Come and see if there's anyone you like. Qi Lingy's face instantly turned pink after being exposed. She patted Yu Tianyue's hand gently and said shyly, What nonsense are you talking about? We haven't even started dating yet. Yu Tianyue giggled and said, Sister Lingy, don't be shy. You're such a good person and your calligraphy is so good. You were even praised by His Majesty during the poetry conference. You're definitely a talented woman. If your father really wants to help you choose your Mr. Right, I think His Majesty will definitely agree to this. Qi Lingy's face turned redder and redder. She couldn't help but say, Stop talking nonsense. Be careful that I won't accompany you out in the future. Yu Tianyue begged for mercy. My good sister, I won't talk about it anymore. But quickly come out and take a look. Otherwise, you'll find a dark and swarthy husband in the future. Qi Lingy didn't want to bother with her anymore, but she couldn't help but stand out and poke her head out to take a look. With just a quick glance, her gaze was attracted by the soldier at the front. Although she couldn't see his face clearly, she couldn't move her eyes away from the side of his body that was facing her. His temperament was outstanding, and he had a dignified aura. Little sister Tianyue, who is that person? She had forgotten that she had said before that she did not want to pay attention to her, so she murmured. Yu Tianyue followed her gaze and frowned slightly. I don't know either. But from the looks of it, he should be a very powerful soldier. Otherwise, his aura wouldn't be so imposing. Qi Lingy was a little disappointed, but the image of his back was deeply imprinted in her mind. If there was a chance, she hoped to see him again. As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, she suddenly widened her eyes. How could she have such a thought? Yu Tianyue didn't notice Qi Lingy's strange behavior. Instead, she continued to pull Qi Lingy to look at the weapons below. She commented on those cold weapons, but Qi Lingy didn't listen to a single word she said. Opposite Qi Lingy's tea house, there were also a few ladies sitting there. They were dressed in exquisite and gorgeous clothes, and their appearances were extraordinary. I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've seen such a battle array. It's really an eye-opener. A young lady's voice sounded. Only the army led by His Royal Highness can have such a battle array. Otherwise, it's just a so-so. A lady dressed in a water-blue waist-tight dress said in a loud voice. From Big Sister Shurshu's words, you seem to know the King of England very well. The young lady just now raised her eyebrows and asked. How should I put it? She probably grew up listening to His Royal Highness deeds. The lady dressed in water blue looked at the leader of the three armies and said with an infatuated gaze. Big Sister Shurshu is right. Although I haven't seen His Royal Highness in person, he should be in his early 20s this year. 10 years ago, he fought against the enemy and retreated 300 miles, never to invade Sichuan again. At that time, I was still young, but I've heard a lot about his heroic deeds. It can be said that he's a hero from a young age. The lady dressed in water blue didn't say anything. Her gaze followed Xiao Su's movements. At this time, there was no one else in her eyes. In her eyes, the three armies were just the background of that silver figure. The lady dressed in water blue was called Meng Shishu. She was the second daughter of the Minister of War, Meng Xian. Her facial features were deep and her appearance was outstanding. She usually liked to play with swords and spears. She didn't have the gentleness of an ordinary woman, but had a heroic spirit. The first person to speak was the eldest daughter of the Minister of Personnel, Shui Jiaxue. She was young and had a delicate appearance. In fact, there was another young girl in the room. She was beautiful and wore an orange-red dress. Her hair was tied up in a complicated bun. She had a graceful figure, but her eyebrows were rather high and her gaze was somewhat arrogant. This person was Jing Mingzhu, the only daughter of the Minister of Rights, Jing Jin, and his wife. She heard the words of her two sisters and smiled. Although the King of England has many military achievements, he is still a soldier in the end. I admire His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince more. He is talented and learned, modest and amiable. Everyone has their own eyes. Big sister Shishu should admire His Royal Highness more. Shui Jiaxue looked back at Jing Mingzhu and poked Meng Shishu beside her. Meng Shishu wasn't very satisfied with Jing Mingzhu's tone. Although the two of them had a good relationship on the surface, they often competed in secret. When she heard Jing Mingzhu slandering the King of England, she felt stifled in her heart. Little sister Mingzhu, you can't say that. His Royal Highness has worked hard for the country and is deeply loved by the people. I don't know what praiseworthy deeds that His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince has done. Meng Shishu had long heard that the Minister of Rights had the intention to marry Jing Mingzhu to Xiao Ran. Although Jing Mingzhu was annoyed, she didn't show it on the surface. She slightly curved her lips and smiled. Big sister Shishu, it sounds like you admire His Royal Highness very much. Unfortunately, don't forget one thing. He already has an engagement, and that was personally bestowed by the retired emperor. His Majesty personally wrote the decree. You should be more careful and don't have any ideas that you shouldn't have. Meng Shishu's face flushed red because of these words. She wanted to say something but was too embarrassed to speak. She simply turned her head away and didn't look at Jing Mingzhu. Shui Jiaxue didn't expect that the two of them would have a disagreement because of this. She didn't know who to help. In the end, she was also annoyed and didn't care anymore. At this time, Meng Shishu's gaze once again turned towards the direction where the figure was almost out of sight. Her hands tightly grasped the wood of the window. So what if there was an engagement? So what if it was Chu Qingyan? She didn't believe that she couldn't be compared to a mere poor Chu Qingyan. She had been practicing martial arts since she was young. She didn't like poetry and books but loved swords and sabers. 5 years ago, she was fortunate enough to follow her father to the military barracks in the city. She saw the King of England demonstrating a set of swordsmanship to the soldiers. From then on, that outstanding figure was deeply engraved in her mind and accompanied her for 5 years. At that time, she was only a little over 10 years old. Why was it that Chu Qingyan, who had no redeeming qualities, was able to stand by his side? She practiced martial arts day and night for him and never once fell behind. Why couldn't she stand by his side? This time, when the army returned to the capital, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She must find an opportunity to get to know him, let him know of her existence, and then let him fall in love with her. Meng Shishu's eyes flashed with determination and expectation.